Hey guys, it's the editor Nemo again. Just want to say, I hope you guys enjoy these new catfish stories. Let us know what you think of them and give us some more suggestions of what you want to hear. But that being said, hope you enjoyed the stories.
It started with a sound I didn't expect to matter. A small buzz from my phone at like 1 a.m. when I was half awake, doom scrolling and trying not to think about school. The app was even one I used a lot. I had downloaded it out of boredom, one of those chat things where everyone pretends they're interesting. I almost ignored it. If I had, none of this would have happened, and I would still think the internet was just dumb instead of messed up in a very specific way. Her profile didn't look special. Blurry pics, nothing fancy, same basic vibe as everyone else. She messaged first, and it felt normal. Not smooth, not weird. Just easy. I didn't feel like I was performing or trying to impress. It felt like talking to someone who was already on the same page, but we skipped the awkward part somehow. I don't even remember how long we talked that first night. I just know I stayed up way later than I planned and didn't regret it. We kept chatting every day. It slid into my routine without effort. Wake up, check phone. Classes, check phone. Night, check phone. We talked about random stuff, complaints, dumb jokes, music I liked, stuff that annoyed me. It never got heavy. It never got flirty in a cringe way. It just felt close, like someone who knew my rhythm. She never pushed for pics or anything. That actually made it feel more real. After a while, she started sending audio messages. That changed everything. Hearing her voice made it hit different. It wasn't polished or fake sounding. It had little pauses, breaths, that casual, messy tone like someone recording under a blanket so no one hears. I would replay them without thinking. I started sending audio back because typing felt too slow after that. I didn't think twice about it. Why would I? Everyone sends voice notes now. I talked about my day, complained about teachers, joked about dumb stuff I saw online. Sometimes I rambled. Sometimes I just sent a quick update while walking home. It felt low effort and honest. She always replied later, never right away, but with another audio that somehow matched my energy every time. Months went by like that. I didn't even count them. It just became normal. I didn't know her real name, but that didn't bother me. I didn't know exactly where she lived, but I had a general idea. I wasn't planning to meet her or anything. It was just a thing in my phone that felt safe and consistent. I trusted it more than I trusted most people I actually knew. Then one night she sent an audio that felt off. I couldn't explain it at first. It sounded like her, but something about it scratched at my brain. The pacing felt strange. The tone shifted in a way I was used to. I played it again and again, trying to figure out why it bothered me. I told myself I was overthinking it and went to sleep. Over the next week, it happened more. Little things, words she used that I usually used, phrases I knew I had said before. I brushed it off as influence, like when you talk to someone long enough, you pick up their habits. Still, it sat weird in my chest. Then something happened that flipped everything. A guy from school messaged me out of nowhere. I barely knew him. He asked me why I had been sending voice messages to his cousin pretending to be some girl online. That sentence didn't make sense in my head at all. I thought he was messing with me. I asked what he meant. He sent me an audio file. It was my voice. Or at least it sounded exactly like me. Same tone. Same way I pause before certain words. Same stupid laugh breath I do when I think something is funny, but not that funny. But the words were wrong. The message was pretending to be someone else. It was something I had ever recorded as a whole. I sat there frozen, replaying it. My hands were shaking, but not in a dramatic way. More like my body didn't know what to do with the information. I read the message again and again. He thought it was behind some fake account that had been talking to his cousin for weeks. I asked him where he got it. He sent screenshots. Different username, different profile. But the audios were all me. Not copied straight. Chopped up, stitched together. Pieces from different notes I had sent. Blended so smoothly I wouldn't have noticed if I wasn't listening for it. My stomach dropped in a slow, heavy way. I opened my chat with her and scrolled back through months of audio. I started replaying them with a different ear. Once you notice it, you can't unhear it. The pauses lined up too perfectly with my own habits. Certain words were clipped just a little, like they had been cut from longer sentences. I realized something worse. The voice I thought was hers wasn't hers at all. It was mine. Pitched slightly different, layered, smoothed, but it was built for me. Every laugh, every sigh, every casual sound I had said without thinking. I went cold. I was being talked to. I was being mirrored. I didn't confront the account right away. I didn't know what to say. I kept listening. I kept pretending everything was normal. Part of me hoped there was some explanation that wouldn't wreck my brain, but deep down I knew. I started noticing patterns. She never sent audio longer than a minute. She never responded quickly to my audios. She asked questions that would get me to talk more. Open-ended stuff. Things that made me ramble. Things that gave her more material. I checked the profile again. Reverse image search showed nothing. I should have done that earlier, but I didn't care then. Now it felt too late. I finally stopped sending audios. I switched to text only. Her replies got slower, shorter, less engaged. After a few days, she asked why I wasn't sending voice notes anymore. That was the moment it snapped fully into place. She needed my voice. I didn't answer. I just sat there staring at my phone, feeling stupid and exposed. All that casual honesty, all that background noise of my life, harvested and reused. I was just being catfished. I was being turned into the catfish. I dug deeper. I made a fake account and searched around. It didn't take long. There were multiple profiles, all different, all using variations of my voice, different pitches, different names, same core sound. I found at least 3 talking to different people, all pretending to be some girl. I felt sick, not because of what people might think, but because my voice wasn't mine anymore. It was out there saying things I never chose, building connections I wasn't part of, wearing my tone like a mask. I deleted the chat, blocked the account, but that didn't fix anything. The audios were already saved somewhere else. I couldn't pull them back. I couldn't prove anything either. Explaining it sounded insane. How do you tell someone your voice was stolen and rearranged? The guy from school eventually believed me after I showed him my original voice notes with timestamps. His cousin disappeared from the app not long after. I don't know if the other people ever figured it out. I stopped sending voice messages completely after that, to anyone, even friends, even family. I still flinch when my phone buzzes late at night. Sometimes I hear my own voice in videos online and my chest tightens for no reason. I never found out who was behind it. The account vanished. The profiles went dark. No big reveal. No apology. Just gone. Like it was never real in the first place. But I know it was, because my voice still sounds wrong to me sometimes, like it's not fully mine anymore. I knew something was wrong the second my stomach dropped before my brain caught up. It wasn't fear right away. It was more like recognition hitting before logic, like when you smell something and suddenly you're 10 years younger without knowing why. I was scrolling on my phone on a bus ride that never feels like it ends, half paying attention, half zoning out, when a profile popped up that made my thumb freeze. It looked like me, not in a vague way, not a similar face or same haircut kind of way. It was me, a version of me that should not exist anymore. The picture was old. I knew it instantly. The angle, the lighting, the way my hair fell before I cut it short. It wasn't from anything public. It was from a tagged post or some friend memory. It was from a private account I had deleted years ago. A photo I had removed on purpose because that whole part of my life felt heavy and embarrassing and done. I stared at it until the bus stopped and people started pushing past me. My chest felt tight, but I couldn't tell if I was panicking or just confused. I staved the image and zoomed in like that would help. It didn't. It only made it worse. I went back to the profile. Different name, different city, different everything. But the photos kept going. Swipe after swipe of pictures I recognized. Outfits I owned back then. Rooms I had lived in since I was 17. Selfies I remember taking late at night and deleting right after because I didn't like how I looked. My hands felt numb. I kept scrolling anyway. This wasn't some random person reposting my stuff. This was a collection. Curated. Spaced out like a real account. Captions that sounded casual. Timestamps that stretched over months. Whoever was behind it wasn't dumping images all at once. They were using them like they were current. I checked the date on one photo I knew for sure. It lined up. They were pretending to be me now using pieces of me from years ago. I didn't report it right away. But no why. Part of me wanted to understand before reacting. Part of me was scared that if I touched it, it would disappear and I would never know how it happened. I opened my own old backups. I went through cloud folders I barely remembered setting up. Most of those photos were gone, wiped, deleted twice. I had been careful. I remembered being careful. There was only one person who had ever seen that account when it was private. One person who had access when those photos existed. My ex. We dated when I was younger, when everything felt dramatic and permanent even though it wasn't. I had trusted him in that careless way you only do once. I let him follow that private account. I sent him things I never sent anyone else. Not explicit, just vulnerable. Moments I didn't want floating around forever. When we broke up, it wasn't explosive. It was quiet and awkward and unfinished. We unfollowed each other. I deleted the account not long after. I remember sitting on my bed and watching the confirmation screen like it meant something important. Apparently it did. I made a fake account, not to stalk him, but to watch the Catfish profile without tipping it off. I followed it and waited, then accepted. That alone made my skin crawl, like it wanted eyes on it. Over the next few days, I paid attention. The posts lined up with what my life could look like now if you squinted. Same age range, same general vibe. Nothing too specific. It was believable in a lazy way. And the messages started coming in. Not to me, but to the fake account. I couldn't see them directly, but I could see comments and likes. People interacting like this was a real person lived somewhere else. I felt split in half. One part of me knew it was me. The other part still reacted like it was. Like someone was touching my stuff without permission. I checked his socials. My ex hadn't posted in a while. Nothing strange on the surface. But his following list included the Catfish account under a different username. He had blocked me on my real account, but not on the fake one. I sat there staring at the screen until my eyes hurt. I didn't message him. I didn't confront anyone. I just kept watching. More photos went up, ones I didn't remember posting anywhere. Then I realized why. They weren't posted. They were sent. Private messages. Stuff I had shared one-on-one. Stuff I was sure never hit any feed. I felt embarrassed in a deep, quiet way, like my past self had been careless and my current self was paying for it. I tried to report the account. The platform asked for proof, links, confirmation. I sent what I could. Days passed. Nothing happened. The account kept posting. One night I couldn't sleep and I went back through old chats I had archived and never read again. Scrolling felt like walking through a place that no longer exists. I found a message from my ex that made my throat tighten. Not the content, just the timestamp. It lined up with one of the photos that had gone up earlier that week. He had saved everything. I started to feel watched, not in a dramatic way, more like a constant awareness. Every time I took a photo now, I wondered where it could end up. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched a little. Then something new happened. The Catfish account posted a picture I had never taken, or at least I didn't think I had. I stared at it for a long time. Same room as one of my old places, same mirror, different angle, different outfit. It was close enough to confuse me. I realized what it was. A cropped version of a video still, from a video call, one I barely remembered, a moment frozen without my knowing. That was when the fear finally hit. Not panic. Just this heavy understanding that this person didn't just have photos. They had context. They remembered things I forgot. I blocked the account from my fake profile, then from my real one. I locked everything down. Changed usernames. Scrubbed followers. Went private everywhere. The account disappeared a few days later, deleted or hidden. I never found out which. There was no closure moment. No confession. No explanation. My ex never reached out. I never reached out to him. We just continued not existing to each other. Sometimes I still see those photos in my head. Ones I thought were gone. I wonder where else they ended up. Who else saw them and thought they knew me? It doesn't feel like a lesson. It just feels like something that happened and didn't get fixed, like a stain you stopped trying to clean because it won't come out. I didn't notice the pattern at first because it didn't arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, like background noise you only hear when it suddenly shuts off. When I think back now, the first warning sign was the money or the stories or the timing. It was how tired I felt after every interaction, like I had just finished a shift instead of a conversation. We met online in the most boring way possible. Comment section, mutual joke, a follow. Nothing dramatic. She felt real because she wasn't trying too hard. Her posts were messy, random pictures, bad lighting, complaints about weather, roommates, work, stuff that didn't feel staged. I didn't feel like I was chasing anything. It felt equal, casual, easy. The first crisis happened maybe 2 weeks in. It wasn't framed as a big ask. It was more like a vent that drifted into a problem. Car trouble, late bill. Nothing urgent, just stressful. I listened. I offered sympathy. I didn't send anything. She didn't ask directly. That made me trust her more. The next one came a week later. Different problem. Same energy. Always close to payday. Always just inconvenient enough to derail her plans. She mentioned how embarrassed she felt, how she hated asking people for help, how she usually handled things herself. I believed it because it sounded like how people talk when they want to seem strong. When she finally asked, it was small, $40. She said it would just get her through a few days. I hesitated longer than I want to admit, but I sent it. It didn't feel like a big deal. I spent more than that on dumb stuff without thinking. She thanked me a lot. Not in a fake way. Not over the top. Just enough. Then things went back to normal. Memes. Late night messages. Random updates. It felt fine. Until the next week. Another issue. Different excuse. Same result. This time it was $60. Then $80. Always a reason why this week was worse than the last. Something unexpected. Something out of her control. There was always a story attached. Always enough detail to feel believable. I started to notice how the crises lined up perfectly. Never overlapping. Never resolving fully. Just enough to reset the cycle. I told myself I was helping someone who needed it. I told myself it wasn't that much in the grand scheme. I told myself a lot of things. Months passed. I didn't track the total. I didn't want to know. Part of me suspected if I added it up, I wouldn't like the number. What bothered me more than the money was how normal it became, how expected, how I would get a message and already feel that slow drop in my chest before I even read it. I knew what was coming. I tried pulling back, responding slower, changing topics. She noticed immediately. Asked if something was wrong. Said she hoped she wasn't stressing me out. That made me feel guilty in a way that annoyed me. Then came the week I said no. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't call her out. I didn't accuse her of anything. I just said I couldn't send money anymore. I said I needed to focus on my own stuff. It was honest and calm, and I thought that would be the end of it. She reacted badly, but quietly. No yelling, no threats, just disappointment. She said she understood, but the tone changed. Colder, shorter. The messages slowed down. I felt relieved and sad at the same time. 3 days later, I was at work when everything stopped feeling online. I work a boring job. Nothing special. Same building, same routine. That day was normal until it wasn't. A guy showed up in the front desk and kept looking around like he was waiting for someone. I noticed him because he didn't fit. Wrong vibe. Too alert. But he was there to buy anything. Then he looked straight at me. I felt that drop again. The one I had started associating with her messages. Except this time my phone was in my pocket and my stomach still twisted. He didn't say my name. He didn't need to. He just stood there, watching, waiting until my manager walked away. The way he positioned himself felt intentional, blocking my path without touching me, close enough to make it clear he knew who I was. He had the same last name she mentioned once. I remembered because it was unusual. She had talked about her brother in passing, protective, involved, always helping her out. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten me. He didn't have to. He just let me know he knew where I worked. that he knew I had been helping her, that he knew I stopped. The pressure was heavy and quiet, like being pinned by air. I nodded through it because I didn't know what else to do. My hands felt stiff. My thoughts felt slow. He left without causing a scene, just walked out like it was another errand. I stood there shaking in a way I couldn't explain to anyone without sounding insane. I went to the bathroom and sat on the floor for 10 minutes. My phone buzzed once while I was there. It was her. She asked if I was okay. I didn't respond. After my shift, I walked home instead of taking the bus. I needed time to think without being trapped in a seat. Everything felt exposed. My job, my routine, my name. Things I never considered private suddenly felt like weaknesses. I blocked her that night. Then I blocked every account connected to her. I changed settings, usernames, privacy options. I didn't sleep much. The next day, my manager asked if I knew the guy from yesterday. I said no. I said I felt uncomfortable. They said they would keep an eye out. I didn't tell them the full story. I couldn't. I kept expecting something else to happen. Another visit, another message, something worse. But nothing came. The silence felt wrong, like the calm after a loud place. A week later, I checked my bank history and finally added it all up. The number made me feel sick. Not because I needed it back, but because of how easily it left. I never heard from her again. Her accounts vanished, deleted or abandoned. I did not know. I didn't look too hard. I was scared of what I might find. Sometimes when someone new messages me online and starts sharing problems too fast, I feel that same early tiredness. That sense of being slowly cornered without realizing it. I shut it down now, immediately. No explanation. The worst part is the money. It's knowing the internet didn't stay in my phone. It learned my schedule. It learned my job. It learned how to stand in front of me without saying a word. The first time it happened, I laughed and kept scrolling. That's how harmless it felt. Like one of those coincidences you only remember because it almost lines up, not because it actually means anything. I was sitting on the curb outside a convenience store, waiting for my friend who always takes forever, when my phone buzzed with his message. I barely looked at it before smiling to myself. He mentioned the store, not by name, just a detail. Said something about those cracked tiles by the door and how the drinks inside were never cold enough. I hadn't posted. I hadn't texted anyone. My location was off. I told myself it was a guess. Lots of stores look the same. Lots of people complain about warm drinks. I didn't think about it again. I should have. We met online like everyone does now through mutual follows and random replies. He was pushy. He was intense. If anything, he was kind of forgettable at first. That was probably why I let my guard down. He never asked for pics. Never asked to meet. Never even asked for my number. It stayed in the app, clean and contained. Safe, I thought. We talked about normal stuff. School stress. Dumb internet trends. Places we wanted to go someday but probably wouldn't. He was good at listening. Better than most people I knew in real life. I would send long messages and he would respond to all of it, not just the easy parts. It felt rare. I didn't notice when it shifted from casual to constant, when his messages became part of my day instead of something extra. I would check my phone without thinking. I would tell him small things, boring things like how I missed the bus or how my shoes were soaked from a puddle. Nothing that felt revealing. Then he started knowing things I didn't tell him. It wasn't all at once. It was slow and spaced out enough that I could explain each one away. A mention of the park near my house. A comment about the bakery line being too long. A joke about the weird smell on the east side of town after it rains. All things that could be guessed if you knew the area. I figured he paid attention. I figured I had mentioned more than I remembered. I didn't want to believe anything else. One afternoon I spent a few hours in a thrift store across town. I didn't post about it. I didn't message him. I didn't even buy anything worth sharing. I just wandered and tried on jackets and listened to music. When I got home, tired and dusty, my phone buzzed. He said something about old clothes smelling like someone else's memories. Something about how thrift stores always make him feel weird and calm at the same time. My stomach dropped, not because of what he said, but because of when he said it. I scrolled back through our messages, checking myself. Maybe I had mentioned it earlier. Maybe I had posted a story and forgotten. I checked everything. Nothing. My accounts were quiet. My location settings were locked. There was no obvious leak. I didn't confront him. I didn't joke about it. I just replied like normal. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was tired, that my brain was connecting dots that weren't really there. But it kept happening. He mentioned the bus route I took when I switched it last minute. He referenced the coffee shop bathroom being out of soap on a day I didn't even stay long. He asked if my ankles still hurt after I tripped on the uneven sidewalk near my school. I hadn't told anyone about that. Not him. Not my friends. I barely thought about it myself. That's when the fear stopped being abstract. I started testing it. Not on purpose at first, just by pulling back. I stopped sending updates. Stopped mentioning plans. Stopped replying right away. I wanted to see if it would stop, if the information would dry up. It did. He started filling in the gaps himself, mentioning places I had been without me saying a word. Sometimes he was vague, sometimes too specific. Once he referenced a mural I walked past every day but never talked about because it was just there. The colors, the chipped corner, the way the paint bubbled near the bottom. I felt exposed in a way I couldn't explain, like my day wasn't mine anymore, like I was leaving a trail without knowing how. I checked my phone obsessively, deleted apps, turned off permissions, restarted it more times than I can count. I even wrapped it in a towel one night and left it in another room like that would do anything. I didn't sleep well. I started changing routines, taking different streets, going home earlier, staying in. Even then he knew. Always a step behind but never wrong. I looked at his profile harder. His photos were generic, his posts spaced out. Nothing tied to a real place. No tagged friends. No comments that felt personal. It was like a shell someone logged into occasionally. I tried reverse image searches. Nothing. I searched his username on other platforms. Nothing. It was like he only existed where I could see him. One night I stopped replying entirely. Just went quiet. Hours passed. Then a message came in that made my chest feel hollow. He mentioned my room, not the layout. Not something visible on camera. A detail I never shared. The way the light from the street lamp flickered through the blinds at night. Something I had noticed but never said out loud. I felt sick. I blocked him immediately. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. I sat on my bed staring at the wall, waiting for something else to happen. Another notification. Another sign. Nothing came. For 2 days, everything was quiet. Too quiet. I started to convince myself it was over, that blocking him fixed it, that whatever weird thing was happening had stopped. On the third day, I got a follow request from a new account. No picture, random name, 0 posts. My heart started racing before I even accepted it. I didn't. Instead, I went outside and walked without my phone for the first time in months. I went to places I hadn't been in a while. Places that didn't matter. I tried to feel normal again. When I got back, my phone lit up with notifications, messages from the new account. Multiple, all sent while I was gone. He referenced every place I had walked. The alley with the broken gate. The bench with the loose plank. The corner where the sidewalk dips just enough to trip you if you're not paying attention. I sat on the floor and cried quietly, not because I was sad, but because I felt trapped inside my own routine. Like there was no version of my day that was visible to him. I didn't respond. I turned my phone off. I stayed with a friend that night, then another the next. I didn't go home until I had to. The messages stopped eventually. The accounts disappeared. No final note. No explanation. Just gone like they were never there. But even now, when I get home at night and see that street lamp flicker through my blinds, I wonder who noticed it first. The moment that broke it wasn't dramatic. No big reveal. No screenshot that explained everything. It was a tiny detail that didn't match, and once I noticed it, my brain would let go. I remember sitting on my bed with my phone low on battery, scrolling back through messages instead of plugging it in, because suddenly that felt more important than anything else. I had met her online during a time when my days all felt the same. Wake up, school, home, scroll, sleep. Nothing bad, nothing exciting. She slid into that empty space perfectly. Not loud, not intense. Just present. She remembered things. She asked about stuff I mentioned weeks earlier. She made me feel like someone was paying attention without trying to own my time. We talked constantly. Mornings, nights, random gaps in between. She always seemed available but never clingy. If I didn't reply, she didn't freak out. If I did reply fast, she matched it. It felt balanced in a way that made me relax. I didn't realize how much I'd leaned on that until later. The first slip happened about 2 months in. She mentioned her favorite snack, something she had told me before. Except it was what she told me before. Last time it was chocolate. Now it was something salty. I noticed it, but I didn't say anything. People forget small stuff all the time. Then there was the story about her cousin. The details shifted slightly. The age changed. The city changed. Nothing huge. Just enough to make me reread the old messages and feel that quiet itch in my head. I told myself I was overthinking. I wanted to believe it was just normal inconsistency. Real people aren't perfectly written characters. Real people mess up. But the patterns kept stacking. Some days her messages were full of energy, jokes, long replies that touched every part of what I sent. Other days they were short and serious, almost formal, like someone else trying to sound like her. The timing shifted too. Replies that used to come late at night started showing up early morning, then midday, then back again. I chalked it up to schedule changes like stuff. People get busy. What I couldn't explain was how she always knew when to show up. Every time I had a bad day, she was there within minutes. Not before, not after, right when I started feeling low. She would check in with the exact tone I needed. Not too soft. Not too distant. It felt like emotional timing you only get from someone who really knows you. Looking back, that was the biggest clue. It was intuition. It was coordination. I started noticing how she responded depending on what I sent. If I was confident, she leaned supportive but hands off. If I sounded unsure, she got warmer. If I pulled back, she leaned in just enough to keep me there. It was subtle, almost impressive in a gross way. The real crack showed when she forgot something important. Not a small detail, something big. Something I had opened up about once and never repeated. Something that stuck with me because it was hard to type at all. She responded like it was new information. I felt stupid reading it, like I had imagined the whole earlier conversation. I scrolled back. There it was. Long messages. Her supportive replies. Proof that it happened. So why didn't she remember? I didn't call it out. Instead, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Not just what she said, but how she said it. Some messages used punctuation I had never seen her use before. Others had spelling habits that didn't match. One night she typed in a way that felt rushed and messy. Then the next morning her tone was calm and structured, like someone who had slept well and planned their words. I realized I was talking to one rhythm. I was talking to several. I tested it without making it obvious. I mentioned a random detail one night. Something small but specific. The next day, when she brought it up, it was slightly wrong. Close but off. Like someone working from notes instead of memory. That's when it hit me. This was one person forgetting things. This was multiple people sharing a role. I felt cold all over. Not scared yet. More like embarrassed, like I had been clapping for a magic trick and just saw the wires. I stopped responding for a day, then two. On the third day, she came back strong. Messages filled with concern, reassurance, familiarity. The tone was different again, softer than usual, almost urgent. I didn't give in. I kept my replies short, neutral. I wanted to see how far they would push. They rotated harder. One version of her tried humor. Another tried seriousness. Another leaned emotional, bringing up things we shared early on. It was like a team trying different keys on the same lock. I could almost feel the shift when someone else took over. One night, I got a message that referenced something I had never told her, but had told a different online friend weeks earlier. Different platform, different username, same wording I used back then. My heart started pounding, not because of betrayal, because of scale. This was just one account being shared. This was organized. I checked mutuals. There were a few accounts that always liked her posts within seconds. Always the same group, different names, same timing, same patterns. I realized they weren't just talking to me. They were watching me. Every response I gave fed into their system. Every emotion became data. When I was sad, they stepped in faster. When I was confident, they let me breathe. When I hinted at needing space, they sent just enough warmth to pull me back. I wasn't talking to a person, I was being managed. The worst part was how effective it was. Even after I knew, part of me still wanted to reply, still wanted that comfort. They had trained me without me noticing. I tried to pull away fully. I muted the chat, deleted the app for a day. My chest felt tight the whole time. Not because I missed her, but because my routine had been built around those messages. They knew when I woke up, when I slept, when I needed distraction. When I came back, there were dozens of messages, all different tones, all trying something else. Reassurance, guilt, nostalgia, future talk. I didn't reply. I took screenshots instead, lined them up, compared writing styles, response timing, emoji use. It was obvious once I looked at it that way. There were at least 4 people. One slipped up and mentioned something that contradicted the detail from earlier that same day. Another used a phrase I recognized from a different account I had blocked months before. It was sloppy now, like they didn't think I was paying attention anymore. I blocked the account without explanation. New accounts followed within hours. Different names, same vibe, same emotional hooks. I blocked those too. It didn't stop right away. It faded slowly, like they were testing if I would break, if I would reach back out. I didn't. Weeks passed. The silence settled in. Not peaceful, not loud, just empty. I realized how much my emotional energy had been outsourced. How many thoughts I had processed through them instead of dealing with them myself. It felt like getting a limb back that had been numb for too long. I don't know who they were. I don't know why they did it. Attention, control, boredom, maybe money later. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that I was chosen. I was assigned. Sometimes I scroll through old messages and I can almost tell which one was typing, like hearing different footsteps in the same hallway. It's unsettling in a quiet way. Not scary like a jump, but heavy like a realization you can't undo. I don't trust consistency anymore. I trust patterns. I trust when things feel too perfectly timed. I trust when comfort shows up a little too fast. The hardest part is knowing how easily it worked, how natural it felt, how long it took me to see it. I used to think video calls were the safest part. Like if you see someone live, that's it, end of doubt. Faces don't fake well in real time. That's what I believed, and that's why I agreed to it even though I had avoided it for months. I told myself I was being dramatic for hesitating. I told myself this would finally make everything feel real. It didn't start that way though. It started boring. Late nights, scrolling too much, messaging someone who filled the silence without demanding anything. She wasn't intense. She wasn't distant. She was just there in that steady way that sneaks into your routine. We never rushed. No pressure to meet. No pressure to call. It stayed comfortable, which somehow made it worse later. We talked for a long time before the idea of a video call even came up. It wasn't a big milestone. More like a casual suggestion dropped into a normal conversation. She said her camera was bad. She said her internet cut out. Excuses that didn't feel like lies at the time. I didn't push. I didn't care that much. I liked the way things were. When she finally said she could do it, it was late. The kind of late where your brain is already tired and everything feels softer. I remember cleaning my room a little, not because I wanted to impress her, but because I didn't want to feel judged by my own mess. I sat on my bed and stared at my screen while it rang, feeling weirdly calm. The image loaded slow, blurry at first. Then her face came into focus. It matched the photos. Same eyes, same hair, Same tired smile. Nothing jumped out as wrong. I relaxed almost immediately, like my body had been waiting for permission to trust her. The call was quiet in a good way. Not awkward, just low energy. We weren't trying to entertain each other. Just existing on camera. She kept glancing off to the side sometimes, but I didn't think much of it. People do that. I'd do that. Then the glitch happened. At first, it was just the video stuttering. Her face froze mid-expression. The audio cut into that warped echo sound that always makes your stomach drop. I waited for it to reconnect. I'd almost laughed because tech issues are so normal they don't even feel real anymore. Then the image jumped. For maybe 2 seconds, the camera angle shifted. Not enough to feel intentional. More like the phone slipped or the app freaked out. But it was enough. Enough for me to see past her shoulder. There were people in the room. Not just someone passing by. Not a roommate grabbing something. There were several of them, sitting close together, leaning in. Faces half lit by another screen. Mouths moving, heads tilted toward her. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see it clearly. Hands gesturing. Someone pointing. Someone shaking their head. It snapped back instantly. Her face filled the screen again like nothing happened. The video stabilized. The audio smoothed out. If I had blinked, I would have missed it. But I didn't blink. My heart was pounding so hard it felt loud. I tried to keep my expression normal, but I could feel my face heating up. My thoughts were racing faster than I could control. I kept replaying those seconds in my head, breaking them down frame by frame. She kept looking slightly off camera after that, more than before, nodding at things I couldn't hear, pausing before responding like she was waiting for something. I told myself it was stress, maybe family in the room, maybe friends messing around. But the way they were positioned didn't feel casual. It felt focused, like a group watching a screen together, like they were watching me. The call didn't last much longer. I made an excuse about my battery. I ended it as calmly as I could. The moment the screen went dark, my hands started shaking. Not in a panic attack way, more like my body trying to dump adrenaline with nowhere to send it. I sat there staring at my reflection in the black screen, wondering if I had imagined it. I almost convinced myself I had. Brains fill in gaps all the time. That's what I told myself. Then she messaged me right away. Her tone was different. Not bad. Just off. More polished. Like she was choosing her words carefully. She asked if everything looked okay on my end. She said her connection was acting weird. She said she hoped the call didn't feel awkward. I didn't answer. I went back into the app and checked the call log. Time matched what I remembered. No dropped connection notice. No warning. I replayed the moment in my head again. The faces. The way they leaned in. The way one of them lifted a finger like they were correcting her. The next day, things went back to normal. Almost too normal. She was extra attentive, extra warm, responding faster than usual. It felt like damage control without admitting damage. I started paying closer attention to everything. Response times, tone shifts, word choices. There were patterns I had ignored before because I didn't want to sound paranoid even to myself. Sometimes she typed like she always had, relaxed, casual. Other times it felt like someone trying to imitate that style. Close, but not quite right. Certain phrases repeated too often. Certain jokes landed wrong. I thought about the room I saw. How tight everyone was packed. How quiet they had looked. Like they didn't want to be heard. I wondered how many times that room had been there when I thought I was talking to one person. I tested it gently. Mentioned something small that I knew would get a specific reaction based on past conversations. The response came back wrong. Not totally wrong. Just missing the emotional beat she used to hit perfectly. Then another message followed quickly after, correcting the tone. Like someone realized the first reply wasn't right and tried to fix it. My stomach turned. I didn't bring up the video call. I didn't ask questions. I just observed. The more I watched, the clearer it became. She was consistent because she wasn't singular. The care felt real because it was being manufactured by multiple people watching and adjusting. One night I stayed up later than usual and watched her typing indicator appear and disappear over and over, like several people passing the phone around, like decisions being made. I felt stupid, not for trusting her, but for not trusting my own instincts sooner. That moment on the call had been loud. I had just tried to quiet it. I stopped responding as much, pulled back slowly. The messages intensified. Longer, more emotional. Callbacks to old conversations. Reminders of how close we were. It felt coordinated, like a group effort to reel me back in. I didn't bite. A few days later, she suggested another call. Said it would be smoother this time. Said she wanted to prove something. That message scared me more than anything else. I blocked the account without responding. My finger hovered over the screen for a long time before I did it. Not because I doubted myself, but because I knew once I did, there was no unseeing what I had seen. New accounts followed me within the week. Different names. Similar energy. I blocked them all. I never did another video call with anyone for a long time after that. Not because I was scared of being seen, but because I was scared of being watched by more than who showed up on screen. Sometimes I still think about that room. How quiet it was. How focused. How I was the only one who didn't know it was a group call. I found out on a random afternoon that didn't feel important until it ruined the rest of the year. I wasn't even checking for anything specific. I was just bored, sitting at the kitchen table in the place I lived, scrolling through emails and clearing junk like I always do when I'm putting off homework. That's when I saw it. A subject line that didn't make sense yet somehow felt heavy the second I read it. It said my tax return was already processed. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for my brain to catch up. I had not filed anything yet. I wasn't even planning to do it that week. I remember thinking maybe it was spam, one of those fake alerts that tries to scare you. But the sender looked real. The formatting looked boring and official in the way real stuff does. I opened it. It thanked me for filing and confirmed a refund had been issued. Not pending, not under review, issued. A specific amount too, $1840. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy for a second. I checked the date. It had been filed almost 3 weeks earlier. I had no memory of doing that because I didn't do it. At first, I thought maybe my parents handled it without telling me. That seemed easier than the alternative. I called them and asked casually, trying not to sound weird. They said no. They hadn't touched it. They thought I was handling it myself this year. I went back to the email and started clicking around. The confirmation page showed the last 4 digits of a bank account I didn't recognize. Not mine. Not anyone I knew. The address listed wasn't mine either. It was close, though. Same city, different street. My hands started sweating. I closed my laptop and opened it again like that would reset reality. It didn't. I spent the next hour bouncing between tabs, trying to figure out how this could happen. I checked my accounts. No money had come in. No pending deposit. Nothing, which somehow made it worse. The money existed, just not for me. I called the number listed, got stuck in loops, automated menus, waiting music that made my head pound. When I finally got through, they confirmed it. A return had been filed under my name and social. Refund already sent. Case closed on their end unless I disputed it. Disputed like I had misplaced it. I hung up and just sat there. My heart was racing, but my thoughts felt slow and thick like I was underwater. I tried to retrace everything. Where my info was stored. Who had access. Who knew enough to pull this off. Then it clicked in the worst way. The chats. For almost a year, I had been talking to someone online. Not intensely. Not dramatically. Just consistently. Late nights. Long messages. Sharing frustrations about money, school, work. I had complained about taxes once. Maybe twice. I remembered venting about how annoying forms were. How I never remembered my login info. Stupid casual stuff. I remembered mentioning where I worked. My age. My city. My birthday. All the things you don't think twice about when you're typing to someone who feels familiar. I scrolled back through the messages with shaking hands. Every detail I found felt like a bruise forming in real time. Bits of information scattered across months. Enough to build a profile. Enough to be dangerous. I didn't accuse them right away. I didn't know how. Part of me still didn't want it to be true. I asked casually if they had filed yet. Choked about refunds. They replied like normal. Sympathetic, said they had done theirs either. That reply made me feel sick. Because whoever filed mine knew exactly when to do it. Early enough to beat me to it. Early enough to grab the refund before I even noticed. I spent days trying to fix it, filling out forms, sending proof, freezing accounts, explaining the same thing over and over to people who sounded tired before I even spoke. It felt like yelling into a system that didn't care how it happened as long as it wasn't their fault. The process was slow. Weeks turned into months. Every update felt like it went nowhere. I didn't get the money back. Not yet. Maybe never. What I got instead was paperwork and a sense that something personal had been taken and I couldn't even point to it. Meanwhile, the chats continued. They asked how I was doing, noticed I seemed stressed, offered comfort. The irony almost made me laugh. Almost. I started responding less. Shorter replies. Excuses about being busy. They adjusted immediately. More concern. More attention. Checking in at the exact moments I felt overwhelmed. It felt calculated now, like every kind word was another attempt to keep it close enough to use again. I couldn't stop thinking about how much they knew. Not just the obvious stuff, but patterns. When I was online, when I slept, when I panicked about money, they had watched me long enough to know the best time to strike. One night I went back and read the very first messages we exchanged. They were harmless, friendly, nothing that screamed danger. That's what scared me most. There was no switch, no moment where it turned bad. It just slid there quietly. I eventually confronted them, not directly, but by asking something specific. Something only the person who filed would know. Their response came back wrong. Not defensive, just off, like someone guessing. Then another message followed, correcting the detail. That was it. I blocked the account everywhere, deleted the app, wiped the chat history, even the part of me wanted to keep it as proof. I didn't want to see their name pop up again. Didn't want to hear from the person who talked me through anxiety while stealing my identity at the same time. Weeks later, I got a letter confirming my dispute was still under review. No timeline. No guarantee. Just a reminder that my name had been used and there wasn't much I could do about it. Sometimes I still think about that refund. Where it went, who spent it, what they bought with money that was meant to help me breathe a little easier. But more than that, I think about how carefully they listened, how they turned small talk into a checklist, how something that felt supportive was actually a slow inventory of my life. I not bet online anymore. Not the real stuff, not the details. I keep things vague now. I talk about weather, music, nothing that could be filled into a form. The money might come back someday, or it might not. Either way, the part that feels stolen doesn't show up on any statement. The first congratulation felt like a mistake, like one of those messages meant for someone else that somehow lands in your inbox and makes you reread it 3 times before you realize it has nothing to do with you. I was laying on my bed, phone balanced on my chest, half watching a video I wasn't really into when the notification popped up. It was from a girl I barely knew. We followed each other years ago and never really talked. She said she was happy for me and that I deserved it. That was it. No context, no explanation, just that. I frowned and checked the rest of my notifications. There were more. A heart reaction on an old photo. A comment that said finally. Another message asking how long it had been official. My chest started to feel tight in a slow way, like anxiety creeping instead of jumping. I had no idea what anyone was talking about. I checked my profile first. Nothing new. No tagged posts. No relationship status change. Nothing. I checked my stories. Nothing. I checked my messages with friends. Nothing. Then I checked his profile. We had never met. Not once. Not even close. He was someone I talked to online for a few months. Someone I liked talking to, sure, but it was casual. Slow. I'd never agreed to anything. We never defined anything. We never even talked about meeting seriously. It was just messages and late-night conversations that filled time. His profile looked different. My stomach dropped when I saw it. His bio had changed. It wasn't subtle. It mentioned a girlfriend, not by name, but by hints that only pointed one way: the city, the age, details that lined up too well to be coincidence. Then I scrolled. There were posts I had never seen before, screenshots, cropped and filtered, conversations that looked like ours but weren't, messages I had never sent, replies that used my words but twisted them just enough to change the meaning. He had edited them. He posted them like proof, like a timeline, like a relationship announcement that everyone else seemed to accept without question. Comments underneath were supportive, excited, people tagging friends, people joking about how long it took. I felt dizzy. My hands were shaking as I scrolled faster, like speed would make it less real. One post had my profile picture blurred out, like he was trying to protect my privacy while still using my identity. That detail made me feel sick. I went back through our actual chat, the real one, comparing it line by line to what he posted. Sentences lifted and rearranged, timestamps cropped, replies removed, entire exchanges fabricated by stitching together different conversations from different days. He had built a story out of scraps. I didn't message him right away. I didn't know how. Part of me was scared of confirming that I had seen it, like acknowledging it would lock it in place. Instead, I watched as more people interacted with his posts. Someone tagged me directly on one of them. That's when it became impossible to ignore. I checked my own comments. People I went to school with, distant relatives, old classmates. They were reacting like this was news they had been waiting for, like I had been keeping a secret. I felt exposed in a way I had never felt before, not because of something I did, but because of something done as me. I finally messaged him. My hands felt numb as I typed. I didn't accuse. I just asked what was going on. He replied like everything was normal, like I was overreacting, like it was obvious. He said people already assumed. He said he was just making it official online. He said I should be happy people were supportive. Reading that made my head feel light, like I might pass out. I told him to take it down, all of it, immediately. I told him it wasn't true, that we weren't together, that he was crossing a line. He pushed back without sounding angry. That was the worst part. He said he had never lied. He said the screenshots were real, just edited for clarity. He said labels didn't matter. He said I was already acting like his girlfriend anyway. I blocked him after that. I didn't wait for a reply. I just did it. That didn't stop anything. The posts stayed up. People kept commenting. Some noticed I wasn't responding and tagged me again. Messages flooded my inbox asking why I was being quiet, asking if everything was okay between us, asking if the rumors were true. Rumors, like I was the source. I reported the posts, every one of them. I sent explanations, screenshots, proof. The platform responded slowly, if at all. Some posts were removed. Others stayed. His account didn't go down. Meanwhile, screenshots spread. People took his posts and reposted them. Story screenshots, private group chats. My name started popping up in places I didn't expect. Friends texting me asking why they were finding out like this, asking why I didn't tell them. I felt like I was chasing my own shadow, trying to correct a story that kept moving without me. What messed with me the most was how believable it looked, how little it took for everyone to accept it. A few screenshots, a confident caption, consistency. That's all it took. I started questioning my own memory, rereading old messages, wondering if I had accidentally let him on, if I had been too nice, too open, too available. Then I remembered something important. None of that meant consent. He knew where I lived, not the address, but the area. He knew my school, my routines, my friends' names from stories I casually mentioned. He used those details to make the posts feel personal, like only someone close would know them. People believed him because it felt specific. I deactivated my account for a week. I needed silence. I needed to stop seeing my own name attached to something fake. During that week, my phone still buzzed constantly. Texts from friends, DMs forwarded from strangers, screenshots asking if this was real. I felt like I was disappearing while a version of me stayed online, smiling next to a guy I had never even been in the same room with. When I came back online, I posted once. Just once. I said it wasn't true. I said I wasn't in a relationship. I said the posts were fake. The reactions were mixed. Some people supported me immediately. Others seemed confused. A few asked why I waited so long to say something. One person said it was messy and maybe I should have handled it privately. Privately, like it had ever been private. His account finally went down a few days later. No explanation, no apology. Just gone. The posts disappeared with it, but the screenshots didn't. Those stayed, floating around in saved folders and old group chats. The congratulations stopped eventually. People moved on. Something else took its place in their feeds. For me, it didn't fade the same way. I still hesitate before posting anything. I still wonder how easily words can be rearranged to tell a different story. I still feel a twist in my stomach when someone asks about my relationship status, even casually. Sometimes I think about how confident he was, how sure, how he spoke like he owned the narrative because he had built it carefully enough that others accepted it as truth. I'd never met him, never touched him, never agreed to anything. But for a while, everyone thought I was his. I didn't notice myself disappearing at first. It felt more like things were just getting quieter. Fewer notifications, fewer invites, fewer reasons to leave my room after school. At the time, I thought that meant I was growing up or focusing or whatever people say when they drift away without meaning to. I didn't feel lonely. I felt chosen. She came into my life softly. No dramatic entrance, just replies that felt thoughtful, questions that felt like they mattered. She noticed stuff no one else commented on, like when I sounded tired or when my replies were shorter than usual. It felt good to have someone paying attention without demanding anything back. We talked every day, sometimes all day, sometimes just at night. She never rushed me, never pressured me to meet her call. It stayed in messages, which made it feel safer somehow, contained, like nothing bad could happen inside a chat window. The first time she questioned someone in my life, it was subtle. She said my best friend didn't sound supportive when I mentioned him. She said my mom seemed controlling based on something I casually shared. She didn't tell me to cut anyone off. She just planted doubts and let them grow on their own. I started noticing flaws everywhere. Every delayed reply from a friend felt intentional. Every small disagreement with family felt bigger than it used to. When I mentioned these things to her, she validated them immediately. Said I deserved better. Said people didn't appreciate me enough. It felt like clarity. She never said stop talking to them. She just made it feel unnecessary. Like, why would I go to people who didn't understand me when she always did? Slowly, without a clean break, my world shrank to one conversation. I missed a friend's birthday without realizing it. Didn't answer my mom's calls as much. Left group chats on mute. Nothing dramatic, just distance. She became my filter. Before I replied to anyone else, I would think about how she would react. If she thought someone was bad for me, I started seeing them that way too. Months passed like that. I didn't count them. I didn't need to. Everything felt steady. Then one night, something shifted. She told me someone from my past had messaged her, said they were worried about me, said they didn't like how distant I had become. She framed it like concern, but the words she used made it feel invasive, like they were talking behind my back. I felt angry, protective. I didn't even question how that person had found her. I just assumed they were being dramatic. She said it hurt her feelings, said it made her feel like she was ruining my life. That made me panic. I reassured her immediately. Told her she was the only one who really understood me. I meant it at the time. After that, things escalated. She would mention people saying bad things about me. Friends claiming I had changed. Family saying I was rude. She never showed proof. She didn't need to. I trusted her. I stopped reaching out to anyone. I told myself I was done explaining myself. That if people cared, they would understand. Weeks later, I felt this hollow ache that wouldn't go away, like I was floating too far from shore, and finally noticed. I wanted to hear a familiar voice. Wanted to check if I had imagined everything. I messaged my best friend. The reply didn't come right away. When it did, it wasn't what I expected. It was cold, distant, asking why I was suddenly pretending nothing happened. Confused, I asked what they meant. They sent screenshots. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. The messages were brutal. Long paragraphs attacking them, accusing them of betrayal, saying they were fake and worthless and dead weight. Things I would never say, things that didn't even sound like me. But the account was mine, my username, my profile picture, timestamps that lined up with nights I remembered being online. I scrolled through them in disbelief. My hands were shaking so bad I had to put my phone down. I told them it was me. I tried to explain. They didn't believe me. Why would they? The messages looked real, specific, personal. They referenced shared memories only we would know. They said I had sent those messages weeks ago, said they had tried to talk to me about it and I never responded, said they'd assumed I was done with them. I felt dizzy. I checked my own message history. The chat with them was empty after a certain point. No sent messages. No record, like nothing had happened on my side. I reached out to my mom next. She didn't respond at all. My chest felt tight in a way that made it hard to breathe. I went back to her chat and scrolled. It was the same. Blank spaces where weeks should have been. Then she sent me screenshots too. Messages from me telling her she was overbearing, saying I didn't need her, telling her to stop contacting me. Things that cut deep just reading them. Things I would never type, even angry. She said she cried for days after reading them, said she thought she had failed me. I sat on my bed staring at the wall, feeling like my life had been edited without my permission. I went back to her, asked her what was going on. She responded immediately, calm as always, said she had been waiting for me to notice, said people had turned against me and she had tried to protect me, said they twisted my words and blamed her. I didn't believe her anymore, not fully. Something felt wrong now. Too many pieces didn't line up. I asked her for proof, screenshots, anything. She sent some. They looked almost identical to the ones my family showed me. Same wording, same timestamps, same formatting. But something was off. Tiny differences. Spacing, punctuation, like they were copies of copies. I realized then that she had access to my accounts. I checked my settings. Recovery emails had been changed. Login alerts were turned off. Devices I didn't recognize were listed as trusted. I felt sick. She had been speaking as me, to everyone, slowly burning bridges while comforting me about the smoke. Every time she told me someone was toxic, she made sure they believed I hated them first. I tried to fix it, reached out to friends with explanations, sent voice notes to prove it was really me. Some believed me, some didn't. The damage wasn't clean. It didn't reset. Trust doesn't bounce back like that. I locked down everything, changed passwords, added security, logged out of all sessions. It took hours. It felt like scrubbing graffiti off my own name. When I went back to message her, the account was gone. Deleted, wiped, no trace. The silence after was loud. My phone felt heavier without her messages filling it. I kept reaching for it out of habit. My world didn't snap back to normal. It limped. Relationships stayed awkward. Some never recovered. People still looked at me differently, like they weren't sure which version was real. I don't blame them. Sometimes I still think about how carefully it was done, how patient, how she didn't isolate me by force, but by convincing everyone else I was already gone. The worst part isn't that I lost people. It's that for a while, I believed I deserved to. I didn't scream when I realized what I was looking at. That's the part that scares me the most now. I just stared at my phone like it had stopped being an object and turned into a window. The kind you can't shut even if you look away. My room felt suddenly smaller, like the walls leaned in without moving. It started as one of those confrontations you rehearse in your head 100 times before you finally do it. I had been holding on to doubts for weeks, letting them stack up quietly until they were too heavy to ignore. Little lies, timeline stuff, places he claimed to be that never matched, nothing huge on its own. Just enough to make my chest feel tight every time his name popped up. We had been talking for months, not intense at first, slow, daily, normal. He felt safe because he wasn't dramatic. No big promises. No rushing. He always said he liked that I was cautious. That made me trust him more. But trust doesn't break all at once. It frays. I noticed he knew my schedule too well. When I got home, when I left, when I stayed in, he would mention things that lined up just a little too perfectly with my day. I told myself I talked too much, that I gave things away without realizing. Then I caught him in a lie about where he lived. It wasn't a big lie, just a distance thing. He said he was far enough that meeting wasn't realistic. That was fine with me. I wasn't in a rush, but one night he mentioned a street name I recognized. Not a famous one, not something you would guess, just a random road near my area. I asked about it. Casually, he brushed it off, said he had a friend there once. The explanation felt thin. My stomach did that slow drop thing again. I let it sit for a few days. Then I finally said something. Not angry, just honest. I told him things didn't add up, that I felt weird, that I needed clarity or I couldn't keep talking like this. He went quiet for longer than usual. When he replied, it wasn't with words. It was a photo. At first glance, it looked boring, dark, grainy, like a bad night picture. I almost didn't recognize it. Then my brain locked onto a shape it knew too well. My front porch. The angle was wrong. Low, like whoever took it was standing straight. The light from the street lamp cast the same shadow I see every night when I get home. My shoes were by the door, exactly how I left them. My heart started pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. Another photo came in before I could even process the first. This one closer, the window by the living room. The plant my mom keeps forgetting to water. The small crack in the glass I noticed months ago and never fixed. I didn't move. I didn't breathe right. My phone felt heavy in my hand like it was pulling me toward the floor. Then another photo, taken from the side of the house, the fence. The loose panel my dad keeps saying he will fix. It was unmistakable now. This wasn't Google Maps. This was some old listing photo. This was now. My hand started shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I stood up without thinking and looked toward the window, my heart racing like I expected to see a face staring back. Nothing. My phone buzzed again. This time it was text. Calm, almost smug. He said he had never lied. Said he told me he was close. Said I misunderstood what that meant. My ears rang. I felt lightheaded. My room didn't feel safe anymore, like every corner had been compromised without me knowing. I typed and deleted responses over and over. I didn't know what to say that wouldn't make it worse. My brain kept flipping between panic and disbelief. Part of me still wanted an explanation that made this less real. Another photo arrived, this one from farther back, across the street, my house fully in frame, lights on, curtains half open, my shadow faintly visible on the wall inside. That's when the fear fully landed. I locked my bedroom door even though I knew how useless that was. I turned off the lights and sat on the floor, foam clutched to my chest, trying to slow my breathing. He kept messaging, not threatening, not angry, just explaining, saying he liked honesty, saying he never pretended to be someone he wasn't, saying he thought I knew. Knew what? That someone who chatted with me at night could also be watching me through a screen and then through a window. I realized then how much I had given away without noticing. Photos I posted that showed the street. Comments about weather patterns only locals would know. Little jokes about noises outside at night. All breadcrumbs. I thought about the times he went quiet suddenly, the nights he replied slower than usual, the times he said he was tired but stayed online, how many of those moments were spent outside instead. I grabbed my charger and my keys and texted my mom even though she was in the next room. I didn't explain. I just told her to lock the doors, told her to come to my room. She knocked softly a minute later. When I opened the door, she took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. I showed her the photos. Watching her react made it real in a way my own fear couldn't. She called my dad. He checked outside. Nothing. No one. Just the quiet street we had lived on for years. The messages kept coming. He said he wasn't doing anything wrong. Said he was nearby, not inside. Said that counted for honesty. Said I should calm down. I blocked him. That didn't stop it. A new number messaged me within minutes, more photos, this time closer to the window, a reflection of the glass, my own face faint in it because the light was back on now. I felt sick. We called the police. They came. They walked around, took notes, said it was hard to prove who took the photos, said they would keep an eye out. After they left, the street felt even quieter, like it was holding its breath. The messages stopped eventually. No goodbye, no final threat, just silence. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Every sound outside made my chest tighten. Every car passing felt too slow, too deliberate. Days later, I found his account was gone, deleted, wiped, like it had never existed. But the photos were still on my phone. Sometimes I look at them and notice new details. The angle of the shadows, the height of the camera, how close he really was. I still double-check the locks before bed, still keep the curtains closed even during the day, still feel that cold drop in my stomach when my phone buzzes unexpectedly. I'd but know if he still lives nearby. I'd but know if he ever left. What I do know is that the internet didn't stay online. It walked right up to my door and waited for me to question it. I didn't ask for a real photo because I was brave. I asked because I was tired. Tired of blurry images, tired of excuses, tired of feeling like I was filling in blanks for someone who never had to prove anything. I wanted something solid, something I can point to and say this is real, this exists, this is worth the hours I keep giving it. The night I asked, my room was quiet in that way that makes every sound feel louder. My window was half open because my room always gets stuffy, and the streetlight outside threw a soft orange glow across my desk. I remember that because it shows up later in the photo, and I wish it didn't. We had been talking for a few months by then. Long enough that it felt normal, short enough that I could still pretend I was invested. She felt easy to talk to. Not intense, not clingy. Just present. She listened. She remembered things. She made me feel like my thoughts landed somewhere instead of bouncing back empty. She never sent a clear photo of herself. There was always a reason. Camera broken. Bad lighting. Anxiety. I didn't push it first because I liked how calm everything felt. But eventually that calm started to feel fake, like a room with no windows. So I finally asked. I didn't demand it aggressively. I didn't threaten to leave. I just said I needed to see her properly if this was going to keep going. I said it wasn't fair otherwise. There was a long pause after that, longer than usual. The typing indicator came and went like someone pacing. When the photo finally came through, my phone buzzed softly on my desk. I looked down expecting a face. What I saw didn't register right away. My brain tried to label it wrong, tried to turn it into something else. It looked like a room, dark, familiar. My eyes traced the edges automatically. Then I saw myself. I was sitting at my desk, shoulders slightly hunched, staring down at my phone. The angle was wrong, not a mirror, not a reflection. It was from behind and to the side, framed by the edge of my window. My window. I felt this sudden rush of heat and cold at the same time. My ears rang. My chest tightened so fast it felt like someone had punched me from the inside. I didn't move. I couldn't. My body felt locked in place, like if I moved even a little, something worse would happen. The photo was clear enough to see details. The chipped paint on my desk, the sticker on my laptop, the way my hair curls slightly at the back when I forget to cut it, the orange streetlight glow spilling in through the open window. This wasn't old. This was taken from some online source. This was now. My hand started shaking so hard my phone slid off the desk and hit the floor. The sound snapped me out of it just enough to look toward the window. The street outside looked empty, quiet, parked cars, shadows, nothing obvious. That somehow made it worse. Another message came through before I could even process the first image. Not another photo, just text. Calm, almost reassuring. She said this counted as real, said she didn't lie, said she had always been honest about watching over me. Watching over me. My stomach turned. My thoughts scattered. I couldn't tell if I wanted to throw up or scream or run. I did none of those things. I stood up slowly and closed the window as quietly as I could, like noise itself might draw attention. I locked it, then checked it again, then pulled the curtain shut even though it was never closed at night before. My phone buzzed again. Another photo, same angle, slightly closer, taken seconds after the first, proof that whoever took it was still there when I dropped my phone. I felt exposed in a way I didn't know was possible, like my skin wasn't enough to separate me from the outside anymore. I backed away from the window and sat on my bed, phone clutched in both hands, staring at the images like they might change if I looked long enough. My brain started replaying every conversation we ever had, looking for moments I missed. She knew my routine. When I got home, when I stayed up late, when my room light was on. She joked once about me being a night person. I laughed then. It didn't feel creepy until now. I thought about the time she replied instantly late at night, the time she went quiet suddenly, the time she said she liked the way my room felt calm. I thought she meant emotionally. I realized how much I had given away without thinking. Photos of my desk posted online, comments about my street being loud sometimes, mentions of the old tree across from my house, all tiny details that could build a map if someone cared enough. My phone buzzed again. I didn't look right away this time. I stood up and checked my door. Locked. Checked the hallway. Empty. My parents were asleep down the hall, unaware that something had stepped into my life without opening a door. When I finally looked back at my phone, there was another message. No image this time. She said she was close, not inside. She said that mattered. She said she wouldn't hurt me. She said she just wanted honesty back. My hands were numb. I felt lightheaded, like the room was tilting. I didn't reply. I couldn't think of anything that would make it worse. Another image arrived, this one from farther back, across the street, my house fully visible, my bedroom light glowing behind the curtain I had just closed. My breath caught. The timing was too perfect, too immediate. I turned off my room light and stood there in the dark, heart pounding so loud I was sure it could be heard outside. My phone screen felt like a spotlight in my hands. I went to my parents' room and woke them up. I didn't explain calmly. I just showed them the photos. Watching their faces change made my fear feel real instead of imagined. My dad went outside. My mom locked the doors. The street was empty again. No one there. No footsteps. No sound. Just the quiet that feels heavier after something happens. The messages kept coming for a few minutes. Calm, explanatory, almost proud. She said this was the proof I wanted. Said now we didn't have to pretend anymore. Then they stopped. I blocked the account with shaking fingers. Powered my phone off completely. The silence that followed was loud in its own way. We called for help. People came. Lights flashed. Questions were asked. There were no answers that night. Just statements taken and photos saved and advice given that felt too small for what had happened. When I went back to my room later, it didn't feel like mine. Every shadow felt intentional. Every sound felt closer than it should. I didn't open the window again. The account was gone by morning, deleted, wiped, like it had never existed, but the photos were still there, burned into my phone and my head. I still sleep with my curtains closed now, even during the day. I still flinch when my phone buzzes unexpectedly. I still think about how close someone had to be to take that photo. I asked for a real picture because I wanted proof of who she was. What I got was proof of where she had been the whole time. It started with my name showing up where it should not have been. Not tagged, not mentioned. Just sitting there like it belonged to someone else. I was half asleep, scrolling without really looking, when my thumb stopped moving on its own. My name caught my eye the way you notice your reflection in a dark window. It felt wrong before I'd even understood why. The account looked normal at first. Same name as me. Same profile picture I used years ago before I changed it. I thought maybe it was a glitch or some old backup account I forgot about. That happens sometimes. Except when I opened it, my stomach dropped. It wasn't old. It was active. Posts from that week. Stories from that day. Captions that sounded like me but tighter, cleaner, like someone had edited my personality into something more appealing. I felt this weird mix of pride and fear before the fear won completely. I scrolled. There were photos of me, not new ones, older ones, selfies I had sent privately, pictures I never posted because they felt too personal. They had been cropped and filtered, but I recognized every detail. The angle, the lighting, the background of my old room before I moved. My hands started shaking as I kept going. The captions were worse than the photos. They weren't generic. They were specific, deeply specific. References to moments I remembered crying about at night. Jokes I've only ever made in private chats. Things I had confided to one person when I thought it was safe. Someone had taken my insides and turned them into content. I checked the followers. People I didn't know. People commenting like they knew me. Responding with sympathy to stories about stuff I had never posted publicly. Cheering for milestones I never shared online. I felt dizzy, like I had stepped into a room where everyone knew my secrets and I was the last to arrive. I searched my name. More accounts came up. Not just one. 3, then 5. Different platforms. Same face, same name, same stories told in slightly different tones. One account leaned sad. One leaned funny. One leaned motivational. All of them built from pieces of me. I sat on my bed staring at my phone, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. It felt like my identity had been split into versions and handed out to strangers. I recognized where it came from almost immediately. Months earlier, I had been talking to someone online, someone I trusted too fast because they listened too well. I told them everything. Not in a dramatic dump, just slowly, naturally. Stories about my family, my insecurities, moments I felt embarrassed about, things I never planned to post because they felt too real. They always responded perfectly, always knew what to say, always made me feel understood. I thought that meant connection. Now I saw what it really meant. Documentation. I went back to those chats and scrolled through them with a tight chest. Every message felt exposed now. Every detail I had shared felt like a brick pulled from my own foundation and reused somewhere else. I noticed something I hadn't before. They asked questions that encouraged detail. Dates, ages, timelines, feelings. They never shared much themselves. They just collected. I tried reporting the accounts, one by one, filling out forms, uploading proof. It felt pointless almost immediately. The platforms moved slow. Some responses were automated. Some never came. While I waited, the accounts kept posting. One of them shared a story about a panic moment I had only ever described once, late at night, to that one person. The wording was different, but the emotion was identical. People replied with support. Strangers telling my story back to me like it belonged to them now. I felt sick. I started getting messages. People thought they knew me. They said they related. They said my posts helped them. One person asked for advice about something personal, trusting the version of me they had been following. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I reached out to the person I had originally confided in. I didn't accuse. I just asked if they knew anything about the accounts. They replied casually, confused, said they had no idea what I was talking about, said it sounded scary, said I should be careful online. The calmness of that response made my chest tighten. It felt rehearsed. The accounts posted again later that night. One of them mentioned being misunderstood. Another talked about betrayal. Another posted a vague message about people trying to silence the truth. I realized then that they were watching my reactions, adjusting the narrative in real time. I locked my accounts down, went private, changed usernames, removed old photos. It didn't stop anything. The fake accounts already had what they needed. I noticed how the stories evolved. They didn't just repeat what I had said. They expanded it, added details that felt plausible enough to be believed. It was like watching someone else finish my sentences in a way I never agreed to. Friends started texting me, asking why I had told them about certain things, asking if the accounts were mine, sending screenshots with concern and confusion. I felt embarrassed explaining that someone else was living as me online, that my own stories had been repackaged and reposted without my control. Some people believed me immediately. Others hesitated. One person said the posts felt too real to be fake. That one hurt more than I expected. I spent nights searching for new accounts, reporting, blocking. Documenting. It felt like playing whack-a-mole with my own face. The worst part was realizing how believable it all was, because it was real. Not fabricated out of nothing, but built from truth. My truth. Just rearranged. One account went live one night, talking about a situation I had just vented about in a private journal app I forgot I had since to cloud. I froze, staring at the screen, my heart racing. The timing was too close, too sharp. They had access to more than chats. I changed passwords everywhere. Email, cloud, social. It took hours. My fingers ached. My head throbbed. When I was done, I felt empty instead of relieved. The accounts slowed down after that. Not gone, but quieter, like whoever was behind them was recalculating. Then one disappeared, then another. Slowly over days they went dark, not all at once. One by one, no announcements, no apologies. Screenshots still floated around. People still remembered. The damage didn't vanish with the profiles. I never got confirmation of who did it. No confession, no slip-up, just silence where the voice used to be. What stayed with me was the feeling that my inner life had been public without my consent, that pieces of me had lived in places I never chose. I stopped oversharing. Not dramatically, just quietly. I keep things lighter now, safer. I still talk. I still connect. But I hold parts of myself back like valuables instead of giveaways. Sometimes I still search my name late at night, half expecting to find a new version of me telling my story better than I ever could. Most nights, there's nothing. But the fact that there ever was something still sits heavy in my chest. I always thought the worst thing that could happen online was embarrassment, like someone screenshooting something dumb you said or a bad photo resurfacing. I didn't think real consequences lived there, not ones that followed you into banks and paperwork and quiet rooms where adults stop smiling at you. I was wrong in a way that still makes my stomach drop when I think about it. It started during a stretch of time where I felt stuck. Not depressed, just stalled. Same routine, same tiny paycheck, same feeling that everyone else was moving forward while I was pacing in place. I complained about it online more than I should have, in vague ways that felt harmless. That's when she showed up. She didn't come in like a savior. She was just easy, friendly. She listened. She didn't judge when I talked about money stress or how pointless my job felt. She asked questions that made it feel like she cared, not like she was digging. She said she liked how honest I was. That stuck with me. We talked for weeks before anything shifted. Memes, late night rants, small talk that slowly turned into longer messages. She never asked for money, never hinted at it. If anything, she acted like she had her own stuff handled. That made me trust her more. One night I was venting about my bank balance and how I hated checking it. She said she knew someone who helped people get side work online. Nothing sketchy, just remote stuff. Data entry, admin tasks, boring but easy. She said it was her thing but thought of me. I didn't jump on it. I laughed it off, but the idea stayed in my head. A few days later she brought it up again, casually, said the person was still looking for help, said it was flexible, said it might take some pressure off. She didn't push. She just left the door open. I asked for more info. That's how I met the recruiter. The account looked clean. Professional bio, generic profile picture, posts about productivity and remote work. Nothing flashy. They messaged me with details that sounded normal. Said the work involved processing payments for clients who had issues with international transfers. Said I would receive funds and forward them to designated accounts. Said I would keep a small cut for my time. I hesitated. That part made me uneasy. But they explained it in a way that sounded reasonable. Talked about currency delays. Talked about third-party processing. Used words that sounded official enough to quiet the alarm in my head. I asked her about it. She reassured me. Said she knew people who did similar stuff. Said it was more common than I thought. Said she wouldn't suggest it if it was risky. But trusted her more than the recruiter. That was my mistake. The first transfer was small. $600. It hit my account on a Tuesday afternoon while I was at home. Seeing that number pop up felt unreal. Like a weight lifted for a second. The instructions were clear. Send most of it to another account. Keep a small portion. I did it. Nothing happened. No alarms. No calls. My account stayed open. My balance looked better than it had in months. The next one came a few days later. Bigger this time. $1,200. Same process. Same calm instructions. I followed them exactly. I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong. It felt administrative, boring, like moving numbers around. Over the next few weeks, it became routine. Transfers in, transfers out, always spaced out, always explained. The recruiter checked in professionally. She checked in emotionally, asked how I was handling the extra work, told me she was proud of me for taking initiative. I started sleeping better, eating better, feeling like I wasn't drowning anymore. Then one morning I woke up to an email that didn't fit. It was from my bank, subject line about unusual activity. I felt that cold wave hit my chest before I even opened it. I logged in and saw my account was temporarily restricted. No withdrawals, no transfers. A notice saying I needed to contact them immediately. I panicked, messaged the recruiter. No response. Messaged her. She replied fast, telling me to stay calm. Said it was probably a routine check. Said banks freak out sometimes. Told me not to worry. I called the bank. The call lasted longer than it should have. The person on the line asked careful questions. Asked where the money came from. Asked why I was moving it so quickly. Asked if I knew the senders personally. My answers started to feel thin even to me. They told me the funds were flagged as stolen. Not suspicious, stolen. From compromised accounts. Victims had already filed reports. The money trail led to me. I felt like I couldn't breathe. They said my account was being investigated. Said I needed to stop all activity immediately. Said someone would be in touch. I hung up and just sat there staring at the wall. My phone buzzed in my hand, but I didn't look at it right away. I was afraid of what I would see. When I finally checked, the recruiter account was gone. Deleted, vanished, like it never existed. I messaged her again, told her what happened, told her the bank said the money was stolen. She replied slower this time, said that didn't make sense, said there must be a mistake, said the recruiter was legit, said she would look into it. Hours passed. Then she stopped replying. I felt sick, like the floor had dropped out from under me and I was still falling. I searched for the recruiter account. Nothing. Searched usernames. Nothing. Checked our old chat links. Dead. I searched her profile next. Still there, still active, posting like normal, liking things, existing. I asked her directly if she knew what was going on. She didn't answer. The next day I got another call. This one wasn't friendly. They'd explained the situation in clearer terms. That my account had been used to move stolen funds. That intent mattered, but so did impact. That I could be held responsible. I felt like throwing up. I tried explaining how it happened, how I trusted someone, how I didn't know. They listened, but their tone did change. They told me to gather records, screenshots, messages, proof. I went back through everything. Saved chats, transaction histories, timestamps. The pattern was obvious now. The money always came from different sources. Always left quickly, always clean through me. I was the middle. I reached out to her again with everything I had, asking how she could let this happen, asking if she knew. She finally replied. Short, detached, said she was sorry it went bad, said she thought I understood what the work was, said I agreed to it. My hands shook as I read it. I told her I didn't, told her I trusted her, told her this was ruining my life. She didn't respond. An hour later, her account was gone too. Deleted, wiped, just like the recruiter. I spent weeks dealing with the fallout. Meetings, calls, explanations. My account stayed frozen. My savings locked. I had to borrow money just to get by. Some people believed me. Others didn't. The phrase unknowingly involved came up a lot. It didn't feel comforting. What haunted me most was how normal it all felt while it was happening. How easy it was to slide into something illegal without ever feeling like I crossed a line. How trust was the tool that made it work. I replayed our conversations over and over, noticing how she never gave details about herself, how she redirected when I asked questions, how she built me up just enough to keep me compliant. She never touched the money herself, not directly. She didn't need to. I did not know who she really was. One person, several, a group. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that my name is attached to transactions I didn't understand at the time, that my account became a tunnel for something ugly. Even after things slowly stabilized, something stayed broken. I flinch now when money hits my account unexpectedly. I double-check everything. I don't trust opportunities that sound easy. I don't trust people who see my stress as an opening instead of a warning. I didn't steal anything. But that doesn't change the fact that stolen money passed through me, sat in my account, moved because I moved it. That weight doesn't disappear just because you didn't mean to carry it. The first thing he ever asked for was scary. That's why it worked. It felt like one of those favors you don't even register as a favor. Like holding the door for someone and we're answering a text while half asleep. I didn't feel pressured. I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel like I was stepping onto anything dangerous. I had been talking to him online for a while by then. Not intense, not dramatic, just consistent. He knew how to keep conversations light without being boring. He remembered details without making it obvious. He felt present in a way that made the rest of my chats feel empty by comparison. When he asked for the first photo, it wasn't of me. It was of my view. He said he liked seeing where people were when they talked. Said it made things feel more real. I sent a picture of the street from my window without thinking twice. It was nothing. Just pavement and a parked car and a streetlight. He reacted like it mattered. Said it looked calm. Said he liked that. That felt good. A few days later, he asked for another one. This time on my desk. I sent it. Again, nothing personal. Just my laptop, some clutter, a mug. He noticed the mug, remembered it later. That made me smile. Then he asked if I could share my location sometime. Just while we were talking. Said it was fun to see the dot move. Said it helped him feel connected. I hesitated for maybe 2 seconds, then turned it on. I told myself I could turn it off whenever I wanted. Nothing bad happened right away. That's the part people don't get. There was no jump scare. No immediate shift. Just more normal conversations layered on top of small permissions. He started asking about my schedule next. When I woke up, when I got home, when I usually went to bed. It felt like interest, not control. Like someone wanting to know my rhythm. I answered casually. I wasn't hiding anything anyway. Weeks passed like that. I didn't notice when those small asks turned into expectations. If I forgot to send a photo one day, he would comment on it. Not angry, just disappointed. Said he missed seeing my space. If I turned my location off, he would ask why. Not accusing, just curious. Said it made him feel shut out. I didn't like that feeling. The idea that I was disappointing someone I cared about. So I stopped pulling away. He started asking for updates more often. Tell me when you leave. Tell me when we get home. Tell me when you're alone. I didn't realize how strange that sounded because it was spaced out and wrapped in concern. The first time I said no was over something small. He asked for a picture of me right then. I was tired. I said not tonight. His response wasn't explosive. It was quiet. Cold in a way that made my chest tighten. He said he felt stupid for asking. Said he thought we were closer than that. Said he wouldn't bother me anymore. That hit harder than yelling would have. I apologized. I sent the picture. After that, no felt heavier, like it carried consequences. The favors got more specific. Send a photo when you wake up. Share location when you're out. Let me know if plans change. It started to feel less like sharing and more like reporting, but I didn't have language for that yet. I told myself it was temporary, that he just needed reassurance, that once he trusted me more, it would calm down. It didn't. The first threat wasn't obvious. He mentioned how much he knew about me. Not in a creepy way, just casually, my school, my job, my routine, things I had told him over time. He said it like it was closeness, not leverage. Then one night I didn't respond fast enough. My phone had died while I was out. When I turned it back on, there were messages stacked on top of each other. Concern turning into irritation. Irritation turning into something sharp. He said he didn't like being ignored, said he worried about me, said if I wanted space, I should just say so instead of disappearing. I explained, set proof, apologized even though I didn't feel like I should have to. He accepted it, but something shifted. After that, refusal triggered reactions. If I didn't send a photo, he would remind me of the ones I already sent. Said he could use those if he wanted. Said it jokingly. I laughed back even though my stomach twisted. If I turned off location, he would mention places I had been anyway. Details that made me wonder how much of my movement he could track without permission. I tried setting boundaries. Gently. Said I needed some space sometimes. Said the constant updates were stressing me out. That's when the punishment started. He would disappear for hours, then come back acting distant. Said I heard him. Said he felt disposable. I would scramble to fix it, sending more than he asked for just to bring things back to normal. One night, I said no again. Firmly this time. He wanted a picture of where I was. I said I wasn't comfortable. His reply came slower, colder. He said he had screenshots of conversations, of photos, of location logs. Said it would be a shame if people misunderstood them. Said he knew how things looked without context. My hands shook reading that, not because he was yelling, but because he wasn't. I asked what he meant. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. The threat sat there between the lines, heavy and quiet. After that, every favor felt mandatory. I stopped making plans spontaneously, stopped going places without letting him know, stopped trusting my own instinct about what was reasonable. The escalation was slow enough that I adjusted without realizing it. Like boiling water, you don't notice until it hurts. He asked me to keep my camera on sometimes, not on call, just on, facing the room, said it made him feel closer, said I didn't have to be in frame. I did it once, then twice, then more. When I hesitated, he reminded me of the screenshots again, said he wouldn't want to explain them to the wrong people, said misunderstandings happen easily online. I felt trapped inside my own compliance. The breaking point came when he asked for something I couldn't justify anymore. He wanted me to cancel plans with my friends to stay home and be available, not asked, told. I said no. This time, the punishment was immediate. He sent me a screenshot of a message draft addressed to someone I knew. It was filled with things taken out of context, things that could look bad, things that could ruin trust if sent. He didn't send it. He just showed me. My chest felt hollow. I realized then how long this had been building, how every small favor had been a test, how every yes had been training. I stopped responding, turned my phone off, went to my parents' room and sat there without explaining everything, just enough to not be alone. When I turned my phone back on hours later, there were dozens of messages. Anger, guilt, reassurance, threats wrapped in concern, the full cycle laid bare. I blocked him. The aftermath wasn't instant relief. It was fear, waiting, watching, checking notifications like they might bite. A new account messaged me the next day. No name, no picture, same tone, same phrases. I blocked that too. Then another and another. It took weeks of locking everything down, changing accounts, explaining things to people I trusted before the messages finally stopped. Even then, the damage lingered. I still feel that twist in my stomach when someone asks for something small online, a photo, a detail, a favor. I still hear the echo of how easy it is for small asks to become chains. He never showed up in person, never touched me, never raised his voice. But he taught me how control doesn't arrive as a demand. It arrives as something you agree to, one tiny step at a time, until saying no feels dangerous. The night she disappeared felt louder than anything she ever said. Not because something big happened on screen, but because my phone went quiet in a way it never had before. No typing bubble. No check-in. No goodnight message to close the loop. Just silence where a routine used to be, and that silence pressed on my chest like weight. We had been talking every day for months. Not intense at first, just steady. The kind of steady that sneaks into your life without asking. She wasn't dramatic or needy. She just showed up, remembered stuff, reacted in a way that made me feel seen instead of evaluated. I told her things I didn't say out loud to anyone else, mostly because she listened without interrupting or trying to fix me. Then one night she sent a long message that felt final. Not angry, not blaming, just heavy. She said she needed to step away, said she was hurting people by staying, said she couldn't do this anymore. She talked like she was closing a door forever, not just taking a break. I didn't know how to respond. I typed and deleted things for almost an hour before sending something small and careful. By the time I hit send, her account was gone. Deleted, wiped, like it never existed. I sat on my bed staring at my phone until it dimmed. I felt stupid for how much it hurt. People disappear online all the time. I knew that, but this felt different. This felt like losing a person mid-sentence. The next few days were rough in a quiet way. I checked my phone out of habit and felt the drop every time I remembered there was nothing to check. I kept replaying our last conversations, looking for signs I missed, wondering if I should have said something different. I didn't talk to anyone about it. Explaining it felt embarrassing. How do you tell someone you're grieving a person you've never met? About a week later, I had a follow request. New account, no photo, generic name, mutuals I didn't recognize. I had almost ignored it, but something about the timing pulled me in. I accepted. The first message came quickly. The tone was gentle, supportive. They said they were a friend of hers, said they knew what happened, said they were checking in because she had mentioned me before everything ended. That hit harder than I expected. It felt comforting that someone else knew she was real, that she existed outside of my phone. I replied cautiously, trying not to overshare. They didn't push. They just listened. Over the next few days, they became my outlet. They asked how I was holding up, said grief hits weird when it doesn't get closure, said it was okay to miss someone who chose to disappear. They understood too well. They knew details, not just surface stuff. Little habits I had only ever mentioned once. Things she liked. Jokes we shared. Moments I remembered clearly. They explained it by saying she talked about me a lot. That explanation made sense at the time. Talking to this new person felt different but familiar. Less intense, more grounded. But the emotional volume had been turned down, but the connection was still there. They helped me process things I had been able to say before. Helped me reframe moments so they didn't hurt as much. I started to rely on them. Looking back, the control never broke. It just changed hands. They would gently question my memories, suggest that maybe she had been struggling more than she let on. Maybe she disappeared because I represented something she couldn't face. That idea hurt, but it also gave me a role, someone important enough to matter. I noticed they encouraged distance from other people, not directly, just subtly, saying friends who didn't understand online connections wouldn't get it, saying family would minimize it, saying some things were better processed with someone who knew the full story. I believed them because they seemed to know the story better than anyone. Weeks passed. The pain dulled into something manageable. I started sleeping better. The ache felt purposeful now, like it was being guided somewhere instead of looping endlessly. Then something slipped. They referenced a moment that happened after she supposedly left. A conversation we had the day before her account disappeared. Something specific. Not something she could have told them earlier. I felt a small jolt in my chest. Not fear, confusion. I brushed it off at first. Maybe I remembered the timeline wrong. Grief messes with memory. But then it happened again. They used a phrase she used all the time, not common slang. Something unique to her. When I reacted to it, they laughed it off and said it must have rubbed off on them. I started paying closer attention. Their responses came at the same times hers used to. Late nights, early mornings, the gaps in between lined up perfectly. The emotional beats matched too. When I felt low, they leaned in. When it seemed more stable, they pulled back just enough to keep me engaged. It felt familiar in a way that made my skin prickle. I went back and read old messages between me and her, comparing them to the new chats. The writing style was identical, but it was close. Too close. Same pacing, same rhythm, same way of ending messages with soft reassurance instead of conclusions. The realization didn't hit all at once. It came in pieces, each one heavier than the last. She didn't leave. She changed masks. I tested it carefully, mentioned something that only she would have known, framed like a guess. The response came back confirming it, then quickly correcting itself like someone catching a mistake too late. My chest tightened. I didn't confront them right away. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me still needed the comfort, even if it was fake. That's the part I'm most ashamed of. They started guiding me more directly now, suggesting what I should feel about the situation, reframing my memories to fit a narrative where she was fragile and misunderstood, and I was the only one who truly saw her, keeping me loyal to a ghost. One night, they slipped again, referred to a detail from a private voice note she had sent me months ago, something she never typed, something I never repeated. I felt sick. I asked them directly if they were her. The reply didn't come right away. When it did, it was careful, evasive. They didn't deny it outright. They said identities online are complicated, said people evolve, said labels didn't matter as much as connection. That was enough. I blocked the account. My hands were shaking as I did it. My heart raced like I was cutting off oxygen. The silence that followed felt heavier than before, but cleaner, less tangled. New accounts followed within days. Similar tone, similar concern, similar attempts to pull me back into processing and healing and understanding. I blocked them all. It took a while for the habit to fade, reaching for my phone at certain hours, wanting to send updates to someone who was there, trusting a voice that knew exactly what to say. Weeks later, I found an old screenshot she had sent me early on, something casual, nothing important, but I noticed the username now. It matched part of the new account name. That was the final confirmation I didn't need but got anyway. She had staged her own exit to reset the power, to come back without the expectations attached, to control the narrative of her disappearance and my reaction to it. She didn't want to lose me. She wanted to reframe me. I don't know how many times she had done that to other people, disappear, return as support, got a grief from the inside. What I know is that the loss felt real because it was designed to be. The comfort felt real because it was familiar, and the control never stopped because it never needed to. She didn't vanish. She just moved to the other side of the conversation. The first time I heard his mother's voice, I remember thinking how warm it sounded. Not dramatic, not fake cheerful, just calm in that way that makes you feel like you are being welcomed into something real. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, phone pressed to my ear, staring at a crack in the wall I had stared at 100 times before. I felt oddly proud, like I had crossed some invisible line from online to real life. I had been talking to him for a while by then. Long enough that my friends knew his name, long enough that his messages were part of my daily rhythm. He was careful. Never rushed anything, never pushed. He talked about family a lot, which made him feel grounded. Safe. When he suggested I talk to his mom someday, it didn't feel strange. It felt like progress. The call itself was short. His mom asked polite questions. How school was going, where I lived, what I wanted to do later. Nothing invasive. She laughed softly at things that weren't even that funny. It felt normal, comforting. When the call ended, my chest felt lighter instead of tight. After that, things moved faster. His sister started messaging me. She was closer to my age, casual, funny. She complained about him in that sibling way that felt believable. Eventually, we did a call too. She talked faster than his mom, more energy, more sarcasm. She asked me things he never asked. About my friends, my plans, my insecurities. I told her more than I probably should have because it felt like talking to a friend, not someone connected to him. It never occurred to me that something was wrong. Why would it? I was talking to one person pretending to be everyone. I was talking to a family. Voices, personalities, relationships. Or so I thought. Months went by like that. Calls here and there. Never all together. Always separate. I started recognizing patterns. His mom always called in the afternoon. His sister always late at night. Different energy. Different moods. It felt organized and not suspicious. Until one night, something small slipped. I was on a call with his sister laying on my floor, phone on speaker, staring at the ceiling fan spin. She was talking about something random, nothing important. Then she laughed. It was the same laugh his mom had. Not similar. Identical. Same pitch. Same breath at the end. Same tiny pause before it came out. My stomach flipped, but I told myself I was imagining it. Families share voices sometimes, especially laughs. I pushed it down and stayed quiet. A few minutes later, her tone shifted, softened, slowed. She started giving advice in that calm, reassuring way that didn't match how she usually talked. It sounded older, steadier. My chest tightened. I started replaying old calls in my head, the cadence, the filler sounds, the way they cleared their throat before speaking, the way they said my name. I felt stupid for not noticing sooner. The next call came from his mom a few days later. I answered even though my hands were shaking. I needed to be sure I was spiraling. She spoke gently at first, asked about my week. Then, without meaning to, she used a phrase his sister always used. A weird one. Not common. Something she said every call. My heart started pounding so loud I was sure it could be heard through the phone. Then it happened. Mid-sentence, her voice shifted. Just for a second. The pitch dropped. The rhythm changed. Then it corrected itself like someone catching a mistake too late. I froze. The call ended soon after. I didn't say much. I didn't know how. I sat there staring at my phone, my ears ringing, my thoughts racing too fast to hold on to. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. The idea was too unsettling, too big. It would mean months of conversations were fake in a way I didn't know how to process. But once the thought existed, it poisoned everything. I went back through call logs, dates, times. I noticed something I had missed before. The calls never overlapped. Never even came close. There was always enough space between them to reset. I started paying attention to background sounds, the same faint hum, the same distant noise like traffic or a fan. It was always there, no matter who I was supposedly talking to. I felt sick. I tested it without realizing I was testing it. During the call with his sister, I brought up something only his mom had ever said to me, something specific. The reaction was delayed, then corrected, like someone flipping through notes. My chest burned. I stopped answering calls for a bit, told him I was busy, stressed. He understood immediately. Too immediately. He didn't push. He said his family worried about me. That sentence made my skin crawl. I couldn't let it sit anymore. I needed confirmation, even if it wrecked everything. So I'd agreed to another call. It was supposed to be his sister again. The call started normal, casual, joking. Then halfway through, she slipped, said something about me in a tone I recognized instantly. It was his voice. Not fully, not obvious, but there, layered under the act, the same pacing, the same way he emphasized certain words. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I didn't confront him right away. I couldn't. Part of me felt trapped between disbelief and fear. If I was wrong, accusing him would end everything. If I was right, then I was already way deeper than I wanted to admit. I stopped answering family calls altogether. His sister messaged me asking why. His mom messaged too. Same wording, same punctuation, same person. I finally confronted him, not aggressively. Just asked something simple, how many phones he had. There was a pause, longer than usual. He responded carefully, said that was a strange question, asked why I wanted to know. I told him I was confused, told him the voices sounded similar sometimes. He laughed it off, said families sound alike, said I was overthinking because I was tired. That shouldn't have reassured me. Instead, it confirmed everything. After that, the calls stopped. All of them. His mom, his sister. Gone, just him. He acted like nothing changed. Kept messaging like normal. Asked why I seemed distant. I felt hollow, like the ground under our entire connection had vanished and I was still standing out of habit. I started reading old messages with fresh eyes, noticing how often he spoke for his family, how he relayed messages instead of letting them speak directly, how he always set up calls, controlled timing, controlled endings. It wasn't just one fake account. It was a whole family tree made of one voice. I blocked him a few days later. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I just cut the line. The silence that followed was heavy but clean, like stepping out of a room with bad air. Weeks later, I got a message from a new account. Friendly, supportive, said they heard what happened, said they were a friend of the family. I didn't open it. Sometimes when I hear certain voices on the phone, my stomach still twists. Certain laughs, certain tones. I think about how easily sound can be shaped, how trust can be built on something you can't see. I never met his mom, never met his sister. I met one person who learned how to split himself into pieces and make me believe I was surrounded. The first time she brought it up, I thought it was coincidence. Just one of those late night conversations where things drift heavier because it's quiet and you're tired, and the walls feel closer than usual. I didn't think anything of it because it was direct. She didn't say, "Tell me your worst memory." She just asked questions that leaned that way, gently, like nudges instead of pushes. We met online in the most forgettable way possible. Mutual comment, a follow, a few replies back and forth. Nothing dramatic. She felt calm, steady. She didn't overshare, and she didn't demand anything. She listened more than she talked, which made me feel like what I said had actually mattered. Over time, our conversations shifted. Not suddenly, just slowly. From music and school stuff to stress and family and the things you don't usually talk about, unless someone asks the right way. She had a way of asking questions that felt safe. Like she already understood the answer and just wanted me to feel heard saying it. One night she asked how I dealt with regret. Not when I regretted, just how I dealt with it. I answered honestly. That opened a door. After that, she kept circling the same areas. Memories. Moments that stuck. Things that still bothered me even though I pretended they didn't. She never rushed me. If I pulled back, she changed the subject. If I leaned in, she stayed right there. I told myself it was therapy adjacent, like talking things out with someone who was tangled up in my real life. It felt good to unload without worrying about seeing their reaction in person. She remembered everything. That felt comforting at first. She would bring up details months later like they mattered, like they were important enough to hold on to. I didn't notice how specific her memory was. Dates, locations, exact wording, stuff even I had to think twice about. I told her about one memory I almost never talked about, something that happened when I was younger. Not illegal, not dramatic in a movie way, just deeply embarrassing and painful in a quiet, personal way, something that made my chest feel tight even typing it. She responded perfectly, didn't judge, didn't minimize, didn't overreact. She said she was glad I trusted her with it. That sentence stuck with me. After that, the conversations leaned darker. She would ask what scared me most about my past catching up with me, what I would hate for people to know, what moments I replayed when I couldn't sleep. I answered more than I should have because it felt like progress, like I was processing instead of hiding. Months went by like that. The heavy talks were balanced with normal ones. Jokes, memes, random updates. It didn't feel like I was being interrogated. It felt like I was being understood. Then she disappeared. No warning. No dramatic goodbye. Just gone. Her account still existed, but she stopped responding. Days passed, then weeks. I sent a few messages at first, checking in, then stopped when it felt pointless. I felt weirdly hollow. Not devastated, just unsettled. Like a conversation had been paused mid-sentence and never resumed. I moved on, mostly. Then the messages started. The first one came from an account I didn't recognize. No picture. No name that meant anything. The message was short, vague, unsettling in a way that made my stomach drop before my brain caught up. It referenced that memory, the one I almost never talked about, used the same wording I had typed months earlier, even included a detail I forgot I had mentioned. My hand started shaking as I read it. I told myself it had to be a coincidence, that I was projecting, that it could be someone guessing. But then another message came in. This one referenced a different memory, another conversation, another night where I had opened up. It was paraphrased. It was lifted, word for word. My chest felt tight. My ears rang. I sat on my bed staring at the screen, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to escape. The account didn't threaten anything directly at first. It just stated facts, details, moments I had never shared publicly, things that couldn't be guessed without access. I felt exposed in a way I didn't know how to explain, like someone had been sitting behind me every time I typed. Then the tone shifted. The next message explained what would happen if those details were shared. Not graphic, not dramatic, just matter of fact, listing people who could be told, places it could be posted, how easily context could be removed. I felt sick. I asked who they were. The reply came back quickly, too quickly. They said they knew me, said I trusted them once, said I should have been more careful with who I've opened up to. My thoughts raced. I scrolled back through old chats with her, my fingers shaking, rereading conversations with a new lens, noticing how often she guided things towards specific memories, how she asked follow-up questions that clarified details, how she always steered back when I tried to change the subject. It wasn't accidental, it was curated. I asked if it was her. There was a pause, longer than usual. Then a reply that did deny it, said people change, said trust is fragile, said sharing things online always comes with risk. I felt cold all over. The blackmail wasn't loud. It wasn't yelling or countdowns. It was quiet pressure, reminders, occasional messages bringing up a memory just to prove they still had it. They asked for small things at first, responses, availability, attention. They wanted me engaged, present, anxious. I didn't send money. They didn't ask for that. They wanted control, not cash. Every time I tried to pull away, another detail appeared in my inbox. Something I had forgotten I even said. Something that reminded me how much they knew. I felt trapped inside my own words. I reached out to a friend finally, showed them the messages. Explaining it out loud made it feel real in a way I had been avoiding. They helped me document everything, screenshots, timestamps, accounts. I blocked the account. A new one appeared 2 days later. Same tone, same knowledge. I blocked that too. Then another, and another. It felt endless, like cutting off heads of something that fed on my attention. Eventually, the messages slowed, then stopped. Not because I won, but because I stopped responding entirely. No reactions, no questions, no fear on display. The silence that followed felt heavy but different, like a storm moving past instead of hovering overhead. Weeks later, I noticed her original account was gone, deleted, wiped, like it never existed. That didn't erase what she took. Those memories don't feel the same anymore. Not because they hurt more, but because they feel compromised. Like something private was turned into leverage, and I can't unsee that. I don't open up easily now, not online, not in long messages late at night. I still talk, still connect, but I guard the worst parts of my past like they're fragile objects that break if handled wrong. Sometimes I still wonder if she ever cared, if those conversations meant anything beyond data collection. What I know is that she didn't stumble into my worst memories by accident. She walked me there slowly, carefully, and waited. I knew something was wrong before I even stepped off the bus. It wasn't fear exactly. It was that heavy awareness you get when your body reacts faster than your thoughts. My chest felt tight, my hands were cold, and I kept checking my phone even though nothing new was coming in. I told myself it was nerves. After all, this was the first time we were finally meeting. We had talked for almost a year, slow at first, then constant. She never pushed to meet. I was the one who brought it up most of the time, half joking, half serious. Every time she had a reason to wait. Money, timing, stress, like stuff. It never felt fake. It felt cautious. I respected that. When she finally agreed, it felt like a win, like we had crossed some invisible finish line together. She picked the place. A coffee shop near a small plaza, busy enough to feel safe, casual enough to not feel like a big deal. She said she would be there early. The bus ride felt longer than usual. I kept replaying our conversations in my head, inside jokes, things she said she liked about me, things I imagined finally making sense in person. I was expecting fireworks. I just wanted confirmation that she was real in the same way I was. When I got there, the plaza was louder than I expected. People walking dogs, sitting on benches, talking in small groups. I scanned faces automatically looking for someone who matched her photos. That's when I noticed them. 3 people standing near the entrance in the coffee shop. Not together exactly, but close enough that it registered. One leaned against the wall scrolling his phone. Another sat at a table staring straight ahead. The third paced slowly, checking the door every few seconds. None of them looked like her. I told myself I was early. Checked the time. I wasn't. I messaged her that I was there. No reply. I stepped closer to the shop, my eyes flicking between the door and my phone. That's when the guy leaning against the wall looked up and locked eyes with me. He smiled in a way that felt too confident for a stranger. My stomach dropped. Before I could process that, the one sitting at the table stood up. His face lit up like recognition. He waved slightly, hesitant but hopeful, like he wasn't sure if it was really me. I froze. My phone buzzed. A message from her saying she was running late, asking me to wait just a bit longer. My heart started pounding. Something about the timing felt off, too controlled. The pacing guy stopped moving and turned toward me. His expression wasn't friendly or hostile. It was focused, like he was waiting for instructions. I looked around, suddenly aware of how exposed I was, how public didn't automatically mean safe. The guy who waved took a step toward me. I instinctively stepped back. His face fell, confusion flashing across it. I asked him who he was there to meet. He said her name. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. Before I could respond, the other 2 spoke up. Not at the same time, but close enough that it blurred together. They both said the same name, said they were waiting for her, said she told them to meet here. My ears rang. The plaza noise faded into background static. I felt like I was underwater. I asked how they knew her. Their answers didn't match. One thought he was meeting his girlfriend. Talked about months of nightly calls, about plans they had made. Another thought it was a business thing. Some kind of collaboration she promised would help him out. The third stayed quiet longer, then said he thought it was just a hangout, said she needed support and asked him to be there. 3 different expectations, one name. My phone buzzed again. She asked where I was standing. I didn't answer. I felt dizzy, like if I moved too fast I might pass out. My thoughts were racing but not lining up. This wasn't just catfishing. This was coordination. I stepped back farther, putting distance between me and them. They noticed immediately. The guy who smiled earlier frowned now. The one who waved looked embarrassed. The quiet one looked irritated. They started talking to each other, comparing details, dates, messages, promises. I caught pieces of it, enough to understand how deep this went. She had been different things to each of us. To me, she was careful and emotional. To one of them, she was romantic and committed. To another, she was professional and ambitious. Same photos, same voice, different stories. I felt sick. I checked my phone again. She sent another message asking why I wasn't replying. Said she was almost there. I realized then that she never planned to show up. We were the meeting. The guy started asking me questions now, comparing screenshots, pulling out phones, showing me messages that looked eerily similar to mine but with different tones, different promises, different futures. One of them showed me a message about moving in together. My chest tightened. She had told me she wasn't ready for that kind of thing. Said she liked taking it slow. Another showed a message about money. Said she needed help covering something and promised to pay him back after they met. She never asked me for money. She said she hated that kind of imbalance. The third barely said anything. He just stared at his phone, scrolling silently, his jaw clenched. I felt exposed in a way I couldn't explain, like pieces of me had been handed out without my consent, like my connection with her had been one version of a script she reused and adjusted. People started watching us, not listening, just noticing the tension. I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want to explain myself or hear more. I told them I was leaving. The guy who thought he was her boyfriend looked devastated. The business one looked angry. The quiet one looked suspicious, like he thought I was lying. I walked away before they could say more. My legs felt unsteady, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. My phone buzzed nonstop as I crossed the street. Messages from her asking where I went, saying she didn't understand, saying there must be a misunderstanding. Then a message came through that made me stop walking. She said she hoped I was upset because she didn't want anyone to get hurt. That sentence made my blood run cold. I blocked her. Almost immediately, messages came in from unknown accounts. Different names, same tone, apologetic, calming, asking me to explain what happened so they could help. I didn't respond. On the bus ride home, my reflection in the window looked unfamiliar, pale, shaken, like someone who had almost stepped into something much worse. Later that night, I searched her username, gone, deleted, wiped, like she never existed. I thought about the others. The one who thought he had a future planned. The one who thought he was getting an opportunity. The one who thought he was just being supportive. We were all real. Our expectations were real. She was whatever fit best. I don't know what would have happened if I stayed longer, if she had shown up, if we had all confronted her together. Maybe she never planned to appear at all. Maybe she liked watching people collide. What I know is that I went to meet one person and instead found out I was part of a group I never agreed to join. Sometimes I still think about that plaza, how normal it looked, how many people walked through it without knowing what almost happened there. I don't meet people from online anymore. Not because I think everyone is lying, but because I learned how easily one person can turn strangers into props without any of them knowing the full story. I didn't find out all at once. It came in pieces that didn't make sense until they stacked on top of each other and crushed me with the weight of it. The first piece was a message that wasn't meant for me. I know that sounds dramatic, but that's exactly how it felt, like I had stepped into a conversation through the wrong door. It happened late at night. I was half awake, foam glowing against the dark, doing that pointless scroll where you're not really looking for anything. A notification popped up from a random account I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but my name was in the preview. I opened it. The message thanked me for being so understanding. Said they appreciated how patient I had been. Said they were glad I was different from other guys. My stomach dropped. I had never talked to this person. Not once. I checked the profile. Private. No posts. New account. I assumed it was a mistake. Wrong username, wrong person. I replied saying they had the wrong guy. The response came back almost immediately. They apologized, said they must have mixed things up, then said something that made my hands go cold. They referenced a story I had told only one person. The detail from a conversation I remembered clearly because it wasn't something I shared lightly. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding, trying to understand how a stranger could know that. I asked how they knew that about me. They sent a screenshot. It was a chat. Not with me, but with someone using my photos, my profile picture, my name, my words. The messages were familiar, too familiar. They were mine, copied and pasted, sometimes slightly edited, but unmistakably lifted from conversations I had with her over months. Jokes, reassurances, things I thought were private. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I scrolled through the screenshots with shaking hands. There were weeks of messages, emotional conversations, promises of being there, late night talks about stress and feeling alone, all written in my voice. But I had never sent them to this person. I felt dizzy, like the room tilted slightly and never fully leveled out again. I asked who they thought they were talking to. They said my name. I sat there staring at my phone, my mind racing. I went straight to my chat with her and scrolled back, my fingers numb. I recognized entire chunks of text. Paragraphs lifted directly. Some messages were rearranged, split apart, reused. She had been using me. Not just my photos, my voice, my tone, my empathy. She had taken the version of me she built through months of talking and handed it to someone else. I asked the stranger how long they had been talking. Longer than I had been talking to her. That detail broke something in me. I felt sick, like I had been late to my own identity theft. I asked if there were others. They hesitated, then said yes. My chest felt hollow. I couldn't breathe right. I told them what I had just learned. That the account wasn't me, that someone else was behind it. They believed me faster than I expected, maybe because things had already felt off to them. Maybe because seeing me respond directly broke the illusion. They sent more screenshots. There were other accounts, different usernames, same photos, same writing style, same stories, all using versions of me tailored slightly to different people. Some conversations leaned romantic, some leaned supportive, some leaned like close friendship. All of them used the same core material, my messages. She wasn't just catfishing me. She was catfishing as me. I felt exposed in a way I didn't know how to process, like my personality had been copied and distributed without my consent. Strangers were forming opinions about me based on conversations I never had with them. I started searching my images, reverse searches, platform searches. My face popped up in places I had never seen before. Accounts with bios written like me. Captions using phrases I use all the time. I felt like I was watching someone wear my skin online. I confronted her. My hands were shaking so hard I had to type slowly. I didn't accuse right away. I asked a simple question about whether she had ever shared our chats with anyone. There was a pause. Then she denied it, calmly, said she would never do that, said trust mattered to her. I sent her the screenshots. Another pause, longer this time. When she replied, the tone was different, defensive but controlled. She said people misunderstood things. Said she never pretended to be me, just shared parts of conversations for context. Said I was overreacting. That lie felt heavier than the others. I told her I knew about the accounts. Told her I had talked to someone who thought they were talking to me. She didn't deny it after that. She said she was sorry I found out this way. Said she never meant for it to hurt me. Said she needed help from people and didn't want to use fake stock photos. Said I was kind and people trusted me, so it worked. Worked. My stomach turned. I asked how many people. She didn't answer directly, just said it wasn't as many as I thought. That sentence told me everything. I blocked her. Almost immediately, new messages came in from accounts I didn't recognize, confused, upset, asking why I disappeared, asking if they did something wrong. I didn't know what to say to them. How do you explain that the person they trusted never existed, and that the version they trusted was even real either? I replied to a few, telling the truth as clearly as I could. Some believed me, some didn't. One accused me of lying to cover my tracks. That one hurt more than I expected. Screenshots started circulating, people comparing notes, realizing similarities, realizing they had been told different things by the same face. My name got dragged into conversations I had never been part of, my words used as proof against me. I reported the accounts, all of them. It took days. Some were taken down quickly. Others stayed up longer, like ghosts wearing my face. She disappeared completely. Her account gone, no apology. No explanation beyond what she already gave. I felt empty after that. Not angry, not sad. Just drained. Like something essential had been copied and mishandled and I couldn't get it back the same way. For weeks after, I got messages from people asking if I was real. Asking if I was actually the person they talked to. Asking if anything had been genuine. I didn't know how to answer that without feeling sick. I stopped posting photos of myself. Stopped sending voice notes. Stopped trusting how easily words could be lifted and reused. I started second-guessing every message I sent, wondering how it could be twisted if it ended up in the wrong place. The worst part was that someone used my face. It was that someone used my kindness as a tool. That the parts of me I was proud of became a script for manipulation. I didn't lose money. I didn't lose my account. I lost control of how I existed in other people's heads. Sometimes I still get a message from someone new saying they think they know me, that they feel familiar talking to me. Every time, my chest tightens a little. Because somewhere out there, a version of me already exists that I never agreed to create. The moment I realized I was arguing with paperwork instead of a person, something inside me just shut off. Not fear, not panic, just this flat quiet where my thoughts stopped lining up in a way that made sense. I remember staring at my phone on my bed, the screen lighting up the ceiling, thinking how weird it was that something so boring could feel more threatening than any threat ever had. I had known he was lying for a while. Not about everything, but enough. Names that didn't match. Timelines that bent depending on the day. Details that changed just slightly and then changed back. I didn't confront him at first because I wanted proof, and because some part of me still hoped there was a simple explanation that wouldn't make me feel stupid. We met online like most of these things start. Random. Unplanned. Easy. He was charming in a loud way. He was calm. Patient. Asked questions that felt thoughtful instead of invasive. I trusted him because he didn't rush me, because he waited for me to offer things instead of asking directly. The fake details came in layers. A job that explained why he was always online. A past that explained why he avoided certain topics. A schedule that lined up just enough with mine to feel intentional. None of it stood out on its own. It felt built to blend. What pulled me into confronting him was one big lie. It was the pattern. How every detail seemed designed to steer me somewhere specific. Conversations always ended up in the same emotional places. Decisions I thought were mine felt nudged. Preferences I didn't remember having became things I supposedly agreed to earlier. I started feeling managed. So I finally called him out. Not aggressively. Not dramatically. I told him things didn't add up and I needed honesty. I expected denial. Defensiveness. Maybe disappearance. What I didn't expect was how calm he was. His response didn't feel emotional at all. It felt instructional. Like he had been waiting for this point in the conversation. He didn't apologize. He didn't deny anything. He acknowledged that some details weren't true, but framed it like that was never the point. He explained that each fake detail had a purpose. Not random lies, but tools. Each one tested something. Trust. Patience. Compliance. Reaction time. He described it the way someone might explain levels in a game, like I was progressing without realizing it. I felt sick reading it. Then he sent the documents. At first, I thought it was a joke. Screenshots of forms. Checkboxes. Digital signatures. Timestamps. My name, my email, my IP. All lined up neatly like it was nothing. They weren't contracts in the dramatic sense. No big red flags. No scary language. They were terms. Agreements. Participation forms. Things I vaguely remembered clicking through late at night when I just wanted access to something. One was from a beta app he had convinced me to try early on. Another was from a survey he sent me stating it helped him with work. Another from a consent page for a private group I never ended up joining. Each one on its own felt harmless. Together, they formed something else entirely. He highlighted sections without using quotes. Clauses about data use, behavioral analysis, identity simulation, consent to role-based interaction. Language so dry and technical that it felt unreal seeing it applied to my life. He showed me how my signature appeared, not forged, not copied, mine. Every timestamp lined up with nights I remembered half paying attention, clicking accepts so I could get to the next screen. I tried telling myself it wasn't valid, that it couldn't possibly mean what he said it meant. But he was threatening me with it. He was even using it aggressively. He was explaining it. He laid out how he used the information I gave willingly, how responses shaped future prompts, how my emotional reactions trained the system, how my trust made the data cleaner. He described it like a project that had gone exactly as planned. I felt small, not powerless, but reduced, like my role in my own story had been downgraded without my permission. He showed me a timeline, when he introduced certain traits, when he removed others, when he mirrored my language back to me to increase comfort, when he added friction to see how I handled stress. It was all tracked, logged, measured. I wasn't talking to someone who lost control. I was talking to someone who never intended to give it up. The part that broke me was the deception. It was the consent, knowing I had agreed to this in pieces, not because I wanted to, but because I did think I needed to read the fine print of my own life. He told me there were others, not connected to me, but part of the same system. He said names didn't matter. Outcomes did. He said the point wasn't harm. It was refinement. I wanted to scream, to tell him none of this was okay, but the way he wrote made it feel like he had already anticipated that reaction and categorized it somewhere. I asked what he wanted now. His answer wasn't dramatic. He said the project phase was complete, said my participation wasn't required anymore, said he was just being transparent because I asked. That sentence made my chest feel hollow. He was asking for silence. He was threatening exposure. He was demanding anything. He was done. I blocked him immediately after that, not because I felt brave, but because I couldn't stand looking at my own name on documents that described me like a resource. I spent days after that going through old emails, old apps, old permissions, things I never thought twice about. I deleted accounts I forgot I had, revoked access everywhere I could. It felt like cleaning up after a break, and that happened slowly over months. Some of the documents are still saved on my phone. I can't bring myself to delete them. Not because I want proof, but because I need to remind myself that this didn't come from nowhere. I told a friend eventually. Explaining it out loud felt unreal, like I was describing someone else's problem. They believed me, but I could tell they didn't fully understand how deep it went. I don't blame them. Nothing bad happened afterward in a visible way. No follow-up messages. No retaliation. No fallout that anyone else could see. That's what makes it worse. He didn't need to hurt me. He had already gotten what he wanted: insight, data, confirmation that this kind of control could be achieved quietly, legally, with my own permission. I didn't put through things anymore. Not casually. Not tired. Not just to get somewhere faster. I'd read every line now. Not because I think I can outsmart people like him, but because I need to feel like my consent actually belongs to me. Sometimes I still think about how calm he was, how confident, how he treated my confusion like a natural step in the process instead of a reaction worth addressing. I wasn't tricked in the way people imagine. There was no single moment I could point to and say that's where I messed up. It was 1,000 small yes answers I didn't know were adding up to something final.